Good?
We're good.
All right, awesome.
All right.
All right.
This is Cinemana. My name is Nicholas.
My name is Ellison.
All right.
Yeah, welcome to our very first podcast.
Yeah, this is
go ahead.
trial by fire.
Yeah, pretty much.
You know, mistakes happen. This is gonna be choppy.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little choppy, but this is our pilot episode.
Yeah, the pilot.
And yeah, we're giving it a shot. Here we're gonna talk about all things media, filmmaking, television. Let's see what else. Industry news.
Yep.
We're going to do reviews. We're also going to talk about video games, books, just kind of a big umbrella of all things media.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, let's go ahead and start chopping it up. Let's get it started.
All right. So we'll start with the industry news, and the first topic is Dune.
Okay. Yeah. So you read up on this. I didn't read up too much about this. I only have one bit of news that I've got.
Okay.
Which is they're going to have Christopher Walken as the emperor.
Christopher Walken's going to be the emperor.
He's going to be the emperor.
All right.
Yeah. I believe the emperor's name is Padishah.
Padishah?
Yeah,
okay.
Padishah.
This is a character from the books, I assume. Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
He's a very important character from the books. It should be interesting, man. I'm hyped about where they're gonna go with this story for the sequel.
Yeah, you know much more about Dune than I do. I haven't read the books or anything.
Right.
I just went into it blind, which is great. It was a great experience to go see that. I went and saw that.
Right,
was cool.
That's right. Yeah.
That was one of those movies you have to really see on the big screen to appreciate.
Yes, it's a massive story.
Yeah.
And there's some people. I know I'm gonna upset a couple of fans here, but there are some people that say that this sci-fi story is a lot more interesting than Star Wars, arguably.
Right. The world building is
the world
immense.
building. Yes, it is massive. I mean, there's a ton of books. I believe there's like 10 books in total, and they're all pretty huge. And the thing that makes it interesting is that it's built out of this world. Like, it's not a fantasy world like Star Wars is or anything like that. So it's kind of similar to like Star Trek, where it's kind of like
the future.
Our future.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's way longer, right? It's like 5,000 or
no, we're talking about 10,000 years.
Oh wow, yeah.
10,000 years into the future. Okay. And that history, that span is, just a little bit of backstory. It encompasses a lot of human growth, a lot of mutations.
Okay.
So a lot of human evolution. It also encompasses why there aren't any AI or robots or that kind of thing, computers in the way that we know in that world.
Yeah.
And there's a very specific reason why.
Okay.
Because there's like this 100-year war against AI, and we almost lost, but we ended up winning. And then since then, AI was outlawed. Yeah. So that's the part of the world building. And
so the Skynet rose and fell in this timeline.
Pretty much. So we survived that whole ordeal. And then we said, never again. Humans were like, never again. We're not going to do that shit anymore. And they evolved, and they became, and instead of using computers, they evolved where you have human computers.
Okay. So
I don't know if you remember, and there's a character who's the mathematician, who's the human calculator.
Right.
You remember that guy where he rolls his eye back?
Okay.
And he calculates. He's like, he does all this shit. That's where that comes from. Okay. So the backstory to all of that.
So are these guys like they're modified with
yes, those guys are the human computers, and they don't use technology. It's through genetic mutation.
It's like it's mutated. It's not implanted or anything.
Right.
Like
it's
that.
not implants or anything like that. They are genetically they're genetically evolved.
Right.
Like human beings was like, all right, we're not going to use computers. We're not going to go down that path anymore. So if we are going to do something, it has to be human being controlled.
So but it's not natural evolution. It's accelerated.
It's accelerated. Yeah. They've done gene therapy and all kinds of crazy shit.
All right. Yeah. So on Dune, Javier Bardem.
Yes.
He says that the new Dune sequel will surprise people, is his verbatim word.
Okay.
Said he recently read a new draft of the script, describes it as full of weight and spectacle, which I think is, you could say that about the first one, so.
Yeah. Villeneuve did a great job.
Yeah.
Setting up the just the mood
Right.
and the visuals and the large scale, the heaviness of it, the weight of this world.
Right.
You know, I saw the original one, David Lynch one. It was a little bit
with the polygon force fields.
yeah,
and stuff.
it's so fucking weird, man. But
it's funny because on like it's starting to rip, but like on that special effects, I mean that wasn't it was around the same era of things like Star Wars, which were having like these breakthroughs in special effects, and then you have this movie that's supposed to be epic scale come out, and it's just kind of a little bit garbage.
No, man, it was clunky.
Yeah,
it was clunky,
yeah.
And he didn't expand on that very well. I mean, it's a large story, but it was kind of weird. When I saw it, I saw it as a little kid, and I was still kind of blown away because of the story. It just seemed interesting. I was like, it was pretty badass. But as an adult, I grew up and I was like, oh, okay. And when I actually read the actual book, I was like, oh, okay. He kind of did what he could.
Yeah.
But no, Villeneuve, I think he did a fantastic job.
Yeah. Speaking of Denis Villeneuve, he suggested he'd like to complete the trilogy, which in his mind is adapting Dune Messiah into the third movie.
Yes.
Which is that the third book? I would assume.
I don't think that's the third book. Might be the fourth book.
Okay.
But it's going into, I believe, the grandson of I'm forgetting the names now of
Timothy Chalamet.
Timothy Chalamet.
See, now I'm hitting a blank too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
yeah. So so I believe he's the grandson of
that character.
That character. Of course, his love interest is Zendaya.
Yeah.
So they do have a child.
Okay.
But yes, that is their offspring, and he is essentially the Messiah. So there's a little bit more that goes into it.
Yeah.
Because let's see, what are they do talk about the Messiah, the Hizak Haderach. I think I'm pronouncing that all messed up, but the Hizak Haderach is what they call the Messiah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And he, the offspring of those two goes off, and he becomes this immortal, essentially a god, a god emperor.
Right.
Because he can see everything, the past, present, and future all in one.
Got a Dr. Manhattan thing going on there.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, he becomes like this god emperor, and he rules for like thousand some odd years.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's interesting, man.
So how does the Bene Gesserit tie into all this?
So the Bene Gesserit for thousands and thousands of years, they are the underground sisterhood that has been manipulating everything. They've put people in power. They orchestrate, births. Who gets with what person, what house, or because you have your houses, right?
Very caste.
Right. You have your caste system. So there's essentially royalty, and there's also corporations. So the Bene Gesserit, behind the scenes, they're the puppet masters.
They're the Shadow Cabal, or something like that.
They're the master puppet masters, and they're orchestrating who gets into power, who gives birth to who, what houses are fighting against each other, what houses are collaborating with each other.
Right.
So they run a lot of shit.
And this is the younger Atreides' mother is like one of the Bene Gesserit.
She is part of the sisterhood. Yes.
Okay.
And she takes it upon herself to have her own agenda, and she decided to she wants her son to be that Messiah. Paul, yes, of course. Paul Atreides.
I knew it was like it's a common name. It's like a basic name.
That's right, yeah. Paul Atreides. And she sets into motion this entire Messiah thing, which she actually kind of gets correct, because Paul ends up having all of these
powers,
these powers, these visions, and you kind of see that through the film. He's having a ton of visions, and he has the voice. Right, with the voice of command, so these are very interesting godlike powers, and they all come from the spice.
The spice must flow.
It must flow, man. Don't stop the spice.
Speaking of the Sisterhood, Bene Gesserit, it's actually a spinoff that's in the works.
They're spinning this off.
They're spinning it off. Yeah, I think I think it might be a TV show or something. Maybe I might misread it, but it's definitely it's in the works in the way that it might come out in the next 10 years or something like that. I don't think it's because they have this trilogy they're going to make, and the next movie, which is the second one, is slated for October of 2023. So there's a long time until then. And then I wonder
where they're going to go with that.
Yeah, I imagine the next Messiah or whatever that Villeneuve wants to do is probably going to be at least a couple more years after that.
Yeah.
So unless they're going to release this concurrently with
well, it depends on the time frame.
Yeah.
Because the Dune world, like I said, it's massive. It's 10,000 years in the future. So there's a lot they can expand on. So it depends on the time frame that they're trying to speak about. Whether it's going to be something a little bit more further along, if it's tying into the Dune Messiah, which is maybe going to be the third film,
right?
Or if it's going to be something where they explain the sisterhood or the inception of the sisterhood prior to the movies. So it should be interesting, but I don't know. See, that something like that's a little risky because I don't know if there's a demand,
right,
for that story.
Yeah,
right.
I think they're kind of maybe counting on the popularity of it and people, because there's so many. It's such a rich story that there's obviously a lot of questions that people are going to have and be like, well, "What the hell is all that about?"
Well,
so maybe they're thinking that.
Well, I get that. Like if you're new to the Dune world and you saw the movie, you don't know how important the Bene Gesserit is, right? Until unless you dive into that into that world. So,
and Dune the books, I think it's not something that's more mainstream like say like Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, where a bunch of people have read it. It's more of like you got to be a big sci-fi nerd who have to read stuff like that,
absolutely,
and understand what's going on. So, and especially with the space between the first movie and the the reboot, that's a lot, like decades. So the people that watched the original, aren't the ones that are watching. For the majority, aren't the ones watching these new ones. So,
exactly. Yeah, they're trying to hit a different generation with this,
especially with the Timothy Chalamet and bringing Zendaya in there. It's definitely trying to hit that Gen Z crowd.
Completely different, which is great. Yeah. I think there should be
building a whole new generation of sci-fi fans is
and they've been doing that with Star Wars. And that's why they came out with these additional sequels, and then the Star Wars stories. Movies like Solo and Rogue One and things like that. Mm-hmm. And there's more that are coming. Yeah. So they're planning on a research, and I think that's great. There needs to be competition to Star Wars. They can't have the monopoly.
Well,
when it comes to this kind of stuff.
And they need that competition because we could argue that some of this is becoming a little bit chaotic with their releases and some of their content coming out.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that in a little bit. But please continue.
Well, that's basically all I have for Dune news.
Okay. All right, what else?
So next on the agenda here is Gran Turismo. Neil Blomkamp, who did District 9 and Elysium. Elysium is that movie with Matt Damon where he goes to the the Halo world where it's the
that's right.
Elysium. Is that what it's called? Elysium Ring or something like that?
Yeah, it's called Elysium.
Yeah. So he's being eyed to direct this adaptation of Gran Turismo. It's nothing really confirmed yet, but I think that
is there much of a story?
That's the thing. It's a game it's a car game where you race. It's not it's not quite like the games where it's like Drive or Need for Speed where you actually have missions and stuff like that.
Yeah,
you're racing. You're on a track and you build cars.
Right. Last I remember, there weren't any memorable characters in Gran Turismo.
So is this going to be a new Fast and Furious type deal where they take it out of the racetrack and
if they're taking a page, they're taking a page out of that, man.
We're gonna get Ludacris in space again.
Oh man, I don't know where they're going. I didn't even know this was a thing. I mean, maybe it's just a promotional angle.
Apparently, it's been in the works for a long time. Sony has been kind of backing off on it, greenlighting it again, backing off, over the years, and apparently they're citing the success of Uncharted as a sign that the audiences are ready for these types of movies.
So hold on a second. All right, maybe I'll have to pull something up here.
That's why I said success, because I don't think that
Uncharted marks, because was it really a success?
Critically, I think it was dog shit, but it must have made enough money for them to decide that this is worth it. I don't know. and they're also with Sony as well is using this success to adapt The Last of Us, which has been
okay.
which
now
is different.
That is
completely different.
That is completely different.
Which has been in the works for a while, and it actually finishes wrapping up this month. And it's going to be an HBO Max series.
Yes, and I believe Pedro Pascal.
Oh, that'll be great.
Is playing Joel?
Okay.
Which is fantastic. And I forget who is playing the girl. I have to check that out. But all right, but that's in a sec. So looking at Uncharted here, I don't think there was much success. I don't think there was Uncharted fans.
What's the box office return on this?
That actually kind of liked this.
Well, it made 401 million. So
okay.
I mean,
and the budget was, and I'm trying to look this up right now too.
It was 120 million budget. So counting marketing and stuff like that, it's probably upwards to a couple $100 million they probably spent on this.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I see here. Okay. So all right, there was a decent. All right. So the budget was 120 million, and the gross was 401.
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't see it. I just couldn't see I couldn't see Tom Holland being Nathan Drake.
No. He's not.
He's a great Spider-Man, but he's short, he's scrawny, he jumps around a lot. Whereas Nathan Drake is kind of like this rugged Indiana Jones type hero,
right?
Who's supposed to be much older. Like you could have argued that Mark Wahlberg would have been better Nathan Drake.
Yeah, or Nathan Fillion.
Yeah.
Because people have been asking, he looks like.
Yeah,
he looks like
really
Drake.
Does,
yeah, he looks like Drake, and he wanted to play it. I mean, he's a big comic nerd. Yeah. He's down for it. And a lot of nerds know who he is via Serenity and Firefly.
Yeah.
But the guy's name has been around, and I think they just went with Tom Holland because he's just the new face, and he's everywhere.
Audiences know him.
He's everywhere, and Hollywood is trying to hone in on what's popping. Yeah. Right now,
what's the lightning that's in the bottle? They're trying to keep it in there.
The current recent thing. And then they're jumping on the bandwagon, and they're jumping on the Spider-Man success and all this other stuff. So I think that's a little bit unfair, man. I mean, it was a nice try with Uncharted. I think both of those characters should have been a little bit closer to the actual characters from the video game. Yeah. And not only that, I also think it's a little bit too late. I've seen Hollywood do these video game movies where they'll wait a long time. Like, really, how long has it been between the last game, which was Uncharted 4?
The 5 came out, I think.
Okay.
About not too long before the movie started coming around. So,
okay.
I think that's where they're at now. Is the 5th?
The 5th one.
It might be on the 6th soon. I'm not sure. Those aren't really games that I played a lot. So.
But it's an old game. The point is that it's an old game.
It's like how they're still adapting Resident Evil and stuff like that. And,
right.
Yeah. But I think that's kind of like the exception to the rule, where Resident Evil really did kind of get it right enough where it's developed.
Not the first movie.
No. The first one, not. Yeah.
They got it right when they did Umbrella.
That's the
was it the Raccoon City? Right?
Yeah,
that's what
Umbrella Corp is created the T virus,
right?
And
right.
stuff.
But when they, the newer movie where they did the Raccoon City, that is the closest to the video game.
Yeah, because they had Leon and
and Chris. And so and then you had these memorable characters, you had these memorable situations.
Right. That's Resident Evil 4. Sorry, guys. Claire Redfield is the character.
Right. Yeah. That's right, Claire.
Yeah.
So it was that was the closest thing. All the other ones, all the other Resident Evil movies were just like, yeah, you had some elements, but it wasn't exactly.
It's like, here you go. Here's a movie, and have fun.
Yeah, man, and it's kind of like meal piecing these things together. It's just I don't know.
I think the one that I always hoped they would do, and I think they probably passed the time on that, like you said, with jumping on it too late, is a Metal Gear Solid movie would have been great.
That would have been great. That one has been in production limbo.
It's gone back and forth for years.
Yeah.
Years.
Which you know what? In all honesty, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big Metal Gear Solid fan.
I love that game.
I played all of them. I love them. They're one of some of the best, very intelligent games I have played.
And then I forget the voice actor.
Well, they've changed it. They've changed it a couple times.
The let's see.
Snake. They've changed
Solid
it a couple
Snake.
times. But the last Snake was Kiefer Sutherland. They got Jack Bauer to play Solid Snake, and it was
David Hayter, who is a
that's right.
He's been around. He does other things too, like
that's right.
Know, says here it's X-Men and stuff, but
yeah,
definitely more well known for that iconic, like not like gravelly, but kind of grovelly, deep, fed up voice,
Yeah. The guy that's seen it all, been through it all, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But that's a perfect example. But I prefer that they get it right, and I'm glad that they didn't try to do a Snake movie and mess it up, because you can easily do that.
Yeah.
You can easily do that with a Snake movie because there's so many bits and pieces, and it's a little complicated as far as the storyline is concerned. But because it's a spy film, and that was part of it. They had all these kind of twists and turns in the video game.
Not just a spy film, but it's like a stealth. It's stealth.
It's legit.
So there's in a perfect world, there's not going to be any action because you're trying to sneak past all these guys.
Right. That's the whole point. To avoid
there was
conflict.
Easter eggs where you get different stuff in the game if you didn't kill anybody.
That's correct.
So
if
hard to kind of adapt something where nothing happens.
Right.
They'd have to make him like just a stone cold, beat him up, fight his way through with his fist instead of his mind and his stealth.
Right.
So,
but the story is interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with them taking their time to. I mean, it's been a while. I mean, the last Metal Gear Solid game was 2016.
Yeah.
So it's been about
5.
Yeah. So it's been about 6 years. I prefer them to get it right than for them to crank out something that would have been like just horrible.
Like Uncharted.
Right, like Uncharted. It just, for me, it didn't make any sense. There was no demand for it. You kind of have to jump on these. This is what I would prefer. You have to jump on these video game movies at the height of their buzz, because that will do two things. You're going to make money off of the film itself, because you have people fresh off of the video game, and then they want to go and experience the movie and see how what they're doing with that. And also, you're going to have people that watch the movie,
the reverse,
and are interested in now playing all of the video games.
No one's going to want to, the mainstream is going to want to go back and
right,
like go play Metal Gear Solid 1. They're going to be like, this is they'll think it's terrible because it's not up to their standards,
right?
Unless they're an actual aficionado of the video games and stuff, and they understand
the
story is what defines.
And even for gamers too, man, they can go back and play some of the original ones.
Yeah. But I have it on I have the little PlayStation Classic thing, and it's on it. Yeah, Metal Gear Solid's on it. So
yeah, man. So that I don't like when producers take too long. They did the same thing with Halo.
I heard it was bad, like really bad.
That came and went. There was supposed to be a movie. Neil Blomkamp was actually supposed to be.
Oh, really?
He was supposed to direct that, and it came and went. These were talks that they were having back when Halo 3 was about to come out, and I remember that specifically because I played Halo heavily. And no, they took too long, and then they scrapped it, and it was just like in production limbo. And then they came out with the series, and I need to watch the series. I need to give it a chance. I haven't really watched it.
I heard that it was one of those things where the creators and stuff, they decided not to pay attention to the history of the video games and stuff because they wanted to do their own fresh take on this. And it kind of, similar to how
does that make any sense?
So it's similar to how
this property, hold on. Hey, this property that we know you guys love, we're going to take it. And we're just going to use the name and some of the characters, but we're going to reinvent the whole thing. How about that? Come on.
It's almost like Rupert Friend, who plays the Grand Inquisitor in Obi-Wan Kenobi, who said he didn't even watch Rebels and get to understand the character because he wanted to do his own take on it, which doesn't make any sense to me.
Doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
You're not an original character. You're doing something.
You want to piss off the fans?
Yeah.
You want to piss off the
Which
fans?
is something we'll get into in a bit here about what's happening.
Yeah. We'll get
I think that's a good segue though, because speaking of Star Wars, we have some Kathleen Kennedy news.
Yeah, go ahead.
She says the new Star Wars movies are still in the works. I think a lot of us probably thought that these are going to get shuffled around or canned based on the recent reception of some of these shows.
Okay.
But she says they're still going and they're going to be set in and around the sequel trilogy era, which
the sequel trilogy. So that
the time of Rey and the time of all like the New Republic and all that.
So
stuff.
After Episode 7.
Yeah, I would assume.
I'm sorry.
Or
7,
unless
8, 9.
or unless there are stories that are concurrent in that time frame, I'm not sure, but it's in and around the sequel trilogy era is what she says.
Okay.
But the next movie is done by Taika Waititi. And it's being co-written by Christy Wilson Cairns, who did 1917. So I think we have a good shot here at a movie not disappointing in the way some of the recent ones did.
Okay, hopefully.
Taika describes the movie as being authentic to his vision as a filmmaker. And if it's anything like his recent work, we should expect good things in my opinion.
I hope so.
Yeah.
He is turning out to be a very receptive, very in tune, very clever.
Yeah. Clever is definitely the word I would use.
Very clever filmmaker. And you can see a little bit of his personality coming out in his work, the humor, but also the a little bit of fan service. He understands what the fans actually like.
Right.
And he provides it. He does shift things, does change things, but he is respectful of the original content material.
Yeah.
Which I think is the way to go. So he did a great job in the Thor Ragnarok movie, and I cannot wait to see Thor Love and Thunder.
Yeah, and we'll get into that soon too as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Taika is a welcome change of pace to these. Jojo Rabbit, that was just such a great movie. Man. It's hard to make a Nazi movie heartfelt and warming. It's hard to make one where you play Hitler and
there's charm.
People laugh about it.
Yeah, and there's this weird charm to it, and it's just weird. It's interesting that he takes something that's just like, I don't know how I feel about this because nobody really likes Hitler.
It's not the best.
No, it's not the best.
You wouldn't want him staying late to your parties and all
that's
that.
That's what I'm saying. So he's taking this very, very tragic story and he's flipping it on his head.
Yeah. And
there's this very innocent charm to it, and people can relate to it. And it was cool. It was good. So trusting him with very sensitive subject matter is I would trust him with that. He's shown to be a very delicate filmmaker and understanding his audience and how he displays that, how he expresses that. Man, he's doing a great job.
And I think if people are worried about maybe it's being because he might be seen on the surface, think about Thor Ragnarok where it's too comical for some people. Maybe there's that some people that do say that. I think if they're worried about that, all they have to do is, go watch some of his older movies, which are, more serious.
Yeah.
The Hunt for the Wilder People is a great example.
Okay.
Where, he has the kid and the old man and they have that turns into a father-son type deal. And
really? I haven't seen it.
It's a great movie. You should definitely check it out. Yeah. Okay. One of his earlier works. And then, you could even argue that What We Do in the Shadows has a little bit of a serious tone in terms of the messaging and stuff like that with a comedic delivery. But I'm interested to see what he might do because Star Wars is it's got that serious. It's a very serious story, especially when you go back to Lucas's original vision and stuff like that. It's very personable and that Marvel-esque overt comedic style, in my opinion, doesn't really fit that universe. And so it's interesting to see how he'll balance that tone of seriousness, but also bring his cleverness and his realm for comedy into that because it'll have it. I think he did a great job with that in Thor Ragnarok, where it wasn't quite. Can't be like some of the Avengers stuff where you have this beating over the head jokes and stuff like that.
No, it wasn't. It was he lightly sprinkled it. I mean, he would take, he would put in jokes and it wasn't over the top. He would put in these light little funny jokes into certain serious situations. like like at near the end of Thor Ragnarok in the film where Surtur was destroying. He had this big sword and he was destroying Asgard. And that was the whole plan. And then you had Hulk trying to take him down, like Hulk smash,
big monster.
Right. It was like, no, come on, we need to go. So, it's just, and he didn't do it over the top. It's just these little sprinkles of just kind of like just funny stuff, just to lighten the mood. You got to remember, you're going to the film to have a good time.
Yeah. And and you gotta give a shout out to his character Korg in that movie.
That's right. That's fantastic.
Hello, I'm made of rocks.
yeah, pretty much. Which, by the way, that species is the oldest. Like in the original Thor comic books.
Yeah.
Those were like the first villains that he fought. Yeah. That species.
It's actually one of them makes an appearance in Thor: The Dark World as one of the villains, and it's not the main villain, but he's
very early on. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, he's kind of
a huge version of that species.
He does
and
this
then
like
kind
uppercut. Tears him apart.
And then Taika kind of brought the species down to size a little bit, but I love that they keep him in that. I love that he always kind of has a way into his movies because he as great of a creator he is, he's also a great actor.
He is,
and very like that I guess they call it Kiwi humor, the New Zealand stuff. Very unique, but it's hilarious and I love it. So I'm really interested to see what he's got coming out.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I trust the guy. So I'm he's showed his chops with Marvel. So I want to see how he does with Star Wars.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, Uncle, we're famous. Hector Faulkner, 65. And Richard Baker, 13, have been missing now for 6 weeks. Faulkner is Caucasian. Well, they got that wrong because you're obviously white.
All right, cool. All right, so
so we're talking about Taika and his stuff in Star Wars, and speaking of Star Wars, so shortly afterwards for his Untitled film, we have Patty Jenkins' Rogue Squadron is set to release. So
Patty Jenkins.
Yeah, so she's doing a Rogue Squadron movie. I'm not sure what that entails, whether it's going to be because Rogue Squadron, if you can go back to Rogue One, it already existed.
Right.
And there's a little Easter egg there for those who remember the movie where Red 5 dies, and that's why Luke becomes the new Red 5 in Episode 4. Mm-hmm. And that's why there's no Rogue One because that's what Jyn Erso was. Mm-hmm. And so they basically retired that. Now, will this be the Rogue Squadron from the pre-Episode 4 Rogue Squadron where the rebellion's still getting going, or is it going to be the Rogue Squadron that's we'll explore the time frame between like say Episodes 4, 5, and 6 where there's gaps. There's a couple year gaps in between each of those movies for Luke.
Right. Yeah. Is this going to be after Rogue One,
or will this be later in a new Rogue Squadron? Will it be a sequel trilogy? Because she does say, Kathleen Kennedy did say that these new movies coming out are going to be set in and around the sequel trilogy era.
So this is going to be interesting because anything after the sequel trilogy is going to be canon. I mean, the sequel trilogies are canon.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. For some cases. For some.
Somehow, Palpatine returned.
Right. The man that can be killed. But so anything after that is still going to be considered canon, and I don't know. It's a little scary.
Yeah,
it's a little scary because they can easily mess that up, man.
Yeah, and we could argue that they have kind of already have.
In certain areas, I mean, it's not too bad. Yeah. I was okay with Episode 9. I was all right. It wasn't too bad. I know there's some, people out there that are very, very harsh and very particular critics. But I was happy. I was happy with it.
There's things that I was cool with. There's some things I wasn't cool with, but it was good to have. I'm glad we got them because new Star Wars to me is always Star Wars that's worth watching, whether it doesn't live up quite to my expectations. I never leave the theater like, oh, I can't believe I wasted money on this. I don't think like that.
Right.
I could say like the whole ending where everybody just shows up and it's just like a million. It was like, oh, it's just Avengers Endgame all over again.
Yeah.
It kind of hits the same beats. Yeah. And speaking of more movies, Rian Johnson's trilogy is still in the works. though nothing is really set in stone in terms of when that's going to come out or
whoa. So he's getting his own trilogy?
Yeah, he's been on that since the Last Jedi came out. They've been talking about this Rian Johnson trilogy they're going to do.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now whether that one is going to be sequel trilogy or sequel trilogy era or what remains to be seen. Who knows after these recent turn of events if Kathleen Kennedy is going to be in this position much longer. I don't know.
They're expanding. See, so this is the thing, man. They're the sequel trilogies and everything else that's coming after that in the Star Wars world,
right?
Is for just the new generation.
Yeah,
I think. But it's going to do two things. It's going to get new fans, but it's also going to lose the old fans.
Which is interesting because the way they go about attracting these new fans is by enticing the old fans to bring their kids to these movies. Mm-hmm. You know, like the way they used the original cast to bring back, you know, right. When I was first hearing and looking at, you know, episode 7, you know, I was thinking, oh, wow, we're going to get, you know, it's going to be the old gang back together again and going on adventures, you know, Han, Chewie, Leia, and Luke. And well, what it turned out to be was they never got to share screen time ever again.
No, they didn't. So, which was a
wasted opportunity, in my opinion.
Okay. It's more than a wasted opportunity, man.
The sacrilege.
That's malpractice.
Yeah.
It's malpractice. It's blasphemy in my consideration. This is where my full fanboy comes out. But how is it possible, man?
And now it won't ever be because Carrie's gone.
No, because she's not there. She's gone. They wasted it. And they should have done that in the very first film. They should have done that in the very first film. They had an opportunity in the second film, but things ended up with Carrie, unfortunately. She passed.
Yeah.
But they didn't share the same screen, man. And that was just the biggest disappointment.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't even get Luke and Leia until the second movie, and that was, you could argue it wasn't even real because it was a force projection.
It wasn't, man. So there was no tribute, there was no kind of wrapping things up or a kind of a passing of the baton.
It was more of a bait and switch than it was
a bait and switch, because I was waiting, I was expecting it, I was waiting.
Yeah, like, here we go, okay, we got time still, we got run time. It was
kind of getting there.
Well, the whole
setting up all the pieces.
All the Force Awakens, I'm thinking like, okay, where the hell's Luke? And it's like it gets to the end and it's like, oh, there he is. And then credits. I'm like, what? Well, I was like, what the hell?
Right.
I was like, doesn't even say a word. And I'm like, God, that left a bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah. So that was kind of.
And some people like point to, oh, well, they switched directors, and it's like they forget that the original trilogy didn't have the same director for each movie.
No, they didn't.
So if George can get it done, then they should have been,
It has nothing to do with the writing.
Yeah.
If you have a good plan, I mean, the thing about it is that they didn't set up a good plan way ahead of time.
Right.
They were kind of figuring it out as they went, and it's kind of obvious. So, I would have appreciated that they would have had a written out game plan, and knowing where some of the general blueprint, where the story beats were going to end up. And all right, well, this is what's going to happen in episode 7. This is going to happen in episode 8 and episode 9.
Right.
And then go in and work on the little details. But shit, man, they dropped the ball.
There was no collaboration between creators in that. And
no, there wasn't. It wasn't
felt
an
like
overseeing.
The Last Jedi was its own movie, and then J.J. Abrams had to come back in and because remember it was supposed to be Colin Trevorrow who was going to be the original director of 9, and then with all the fallout and I think he had a couple bad releases there, Colin Trevorrow. So Lucasfilm canned him, and they call it the famous term is creative differences. So
so that's always the case.
Which is interesting talk for you're done.
Yeah. You're not working with us. You gotta go.
All right. Well, before we get on a tangent for the next 2 hours about Star Wars, we should move on to the last news item here.
Yeah.
Which is some Guardians of the Galaxy 3 news.
Okay.
Maria Bakalova, who played Borat's daughter in the latest movie, who was nominated for an Oscar for that role.
Yes.
Will be is the latest star to join the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy 3. So I don't know. I mean, she her character. That's all I know her of is Borat. I mean, she did a great job in that. Very convincing. Stupid Borat daughter. But I'm interested to see. I'm not sure if it's going to be a main cast member. I don't think, they might be doing this thing where they're setting up a new generation of Guardians of the Galaxy characters. But as I note here, James Gunn is done with Guardians of the Galaxy because he is kind of rolling the ball on the DC Entertainment Universe. He's been doing,
That's
the
right.
Peacemaker, he did Suicide Squad.
That's right.
And he's got a yet to be announced project in DC. I think it's probably going to be a movie. So, I think
that should be interesting.
Especially with all the fallout that happened between him and Disney and all those, the firing and then the rehiring. I think James Gunn is kind of just over it. So
yeah. And I can understand that. Like it's very fickle. You kind of have to, be in a good light when you're working with Disney in a positive light. And your personal life has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, but I think that he is kind of the example of the person who can break out of that hold, and
I think that was great.
The fan base and all the stars rallied around him, and
I think that was great. I think that was great that they actually allowed him to come back, because, in all honesty, I didn't see, and this is just my personal opinion, I didn't see what the issue was to begin with. I mean, it was just
some like raunchy and maybe inappropriate to some jokes on Twitter that were like 10 years old,
right?
Which is, it's like, well, they're fine making movies before, but maybe it's when somebody finds these things, they're like, oh, well, now it's in the spotlight, we gotta do something to save face. But I think if this kind of ties into like the whole Johnny Depp thing, with these accusations and these blowing out of proportion of I guess you could say outrage culture in a sense, because there is a little level of that where
at what point does your personal life interfere with your professional life? And it's a little tricky, especially in the entertainment industry, because it's kind of blended together a little bit because you're on public light,
right?
But very easily you can be a subject of like public opinion, and it can ruin your professional life. And you could have done everything correct. You could do everything correct in your professional life, and then somebody pulls a messed up tweet that you did about 10 years ago, and it could be a very ignorant one, and then it's just like, no, you're losing.
I think the problem with that is there's no room for someone to change in that, because people do change, and people do learn lessons, and that's the whole point of life,
right?
So
you should judge somebody based on what's happening right now, currently, not who I was,
or at least give them a chance to repent and see if they understand like their mistake. Short of like killing, raping, or doing some heinous type of crime, I think that there's
some stuff that you can't take back. But when it comes to like just words,
I mean, if we can redeem Anakin Skywalker, we can redeem a child murderer.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's
a little tricky.
So that's the the Guardians are going to be showing up in Thor: Love and Thunder, which is coming out in about a month. Actually, a month today it comes out. So we'll see where the story goes at that.
So James Gunn is going to be done with this. As far as with Marvel, right, with the MCU, and he's moving on to DC. And I saw Peacemaker, and I thought that was.
I haven't caught Peacemaker yet, but I've heard good things.
I ran through the entire series. Actually, I didn't. I kind of went in there with very low expectations.
Okay.
Because it's like, first of all, it's a character I really didn't care about. Nobody knows this character. It's like very.
I didn't know about him until I saw the Suicide Squad.
Obscure, it's a very obscure, weird character.
Goofy John Cena. It's funny because he was never seen before. John Cena.
Okay. All right. But there we go, folks. But no. He did. See, you got to give James Gunn credit, because he took this random obscure character in DC lore that nobody really cares about, and then he created a fan base out of that, like something out of nothing. Honestly, and he made it entertaining, and not just him, but then all the other characters that surrounded it. I mean, it's just, he was pulling from very just like things that nobody really was that knew about.
I mean, in a way, for me, like it reminds me of like John Favreau pulling Iron Man out of nowhere and making.
No. Hold on.
I mean,
That's
think about it.
different.
Like, Iron Man wasn't
different.
a character that was in the mainstream. Like, you know, it wasn't like a Spider-Man. It wasn't.
No.
Yeah.
No, sir. Let's. Okay. No. Let me backtrack here. Okay. James Gunn, I think, is a great visionary as far as making unpopular characters very popular and create a fan base out of them. He did that certainly with Peacemaker. Just to bring it back, he did that with Peacemaker, and I saw the entire series. It was fantastic, and I can't wait to see season 2.
Yeah.
Right. He also did that with Guardians of the Galaxy, and I remember saying this, and I remember stating, I was talking to a couple of filmmaker friends of mine, and I was like, this is actually pretty interesting how he took a very not unknown, but very unpopular, not mainstream group in Marvel Comics, because nobody knew unless you are a serious nerd, which I am, but unless you're really into that world, nobody really knew about Rocket Raccoon or Star-Lord or any of these kind of characters. Nobody
I certainly didn't know.
Nobody gave a crap about them. But now they're in your home.
They're household names.
These are household names. That's not easy work to do, man. As a visionary, to take that type of a risk, that's not easy. I give him a lot of credit. He's done that twice now with 2 intellectual properties. So I give him a ton of credit in doing that. Now, to the point that you made with Iron Man, everybody knows who Tony Stark is, man. Everyone knows Iron Man.
But like back in 2008, it wasn't on the radar for a superhero movie. The mainstream was always Batman, Superman, Spider-Man. The main.
But he's Marvel's Batman,
right? You could, he is. But I would argue that he was not as popular of a character as Batman was.
No, he's not. No, absolutely not.
So for someone to start this whole adventure in Marvel on Iron Man, I think was a ballsy move, and it worked out.
It was ballsy, but it wasn't as risky.
Right. I was saying it kind of reminded me of that.
It wasn't as
on the same
risky.
level.
He's if you read comics, if you're just even grazing comics, there's a handful of heroes that you know of, and everybody knows the Avengers. Even
Captain America,
Iron Man, Thor,
Hulk is always
Hulk. You can name these even back then, pre-Iron Man. If we go back to Iron Man came out 2008.
Yeah, well then you had before they had Ang Lee's Hulk, which Ang Lee's Hulk was probably the more because if you compare it to maybe the old Captain America movies that came out in the 80s and stuff like that.
Oh no, let's not.
Yeah,
let's not go there.
Ang Lee's Hulk was it was kind of when it's oh wow, this might be kind of cool. And then they obviously it wasn't that great of a movie, but it could show what was possible, and I think that was perhaps Fabs took a little bit of inspiration in the possibility of this story.
Yeah, man.
And the Avengers were it was an idea. They're like, hey,
Iron Man was a safe bet.
We'll throw this little Easter egg in there, and maybe it'll come out to be something. And then
Iron Man was a safe bet, and I say that I think what helped it were 2 other movies, which was Spider-Man.
Yeah,
100%.
The 100%. Tobey Maguire. Spider-Man.
Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. The OG Spider-Man. That absolutely, because it hit billions. That and Blade.
Oh yeah.
Blade was big.
Which we're getting again with
that's right.
Mahershala Ali. Yeah.
That's right. And this is pre-MCU.
Yeah.
So that kind of, there was a possibility there, but it was always, they had to find what worked. They had to find that right formula, and actually not trying to reinvent the wheel, but giving people or fans exactly what the source material was. Stick to the story. You can't go wrong.
Yeah.
Take the source material and just make it better. That's what Sam Raimi did. That's what they did with Blade. That's what James Gunn did. It was just, if I grew up reading about these characters and connecting with them, why would I want to see a reinvention of the character? I'm not going to connect with them. I want to see the characters that I connected with. The same thing with like just another side tangent, but like Lord of the Rings. Imagine if they reinvented Frodo's character. It'd just be like, who is this person? Who is this person? I don't know this person.
Well,
so just be respectful of the source material is what I'm saying, and you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that wraps up our news segment, and we'll move into
Okay.
things we watched recently and
All right, so-
movie/TV talk. And
Right. So reviews and some of the recent things that we've seen.
yeah.
All right. So So I've seen. I just finished watching. I binge watched all of Stranger Things, season 4. Yes, I gotta. Man,
Phenomenal.
It's fantastic. It is fantastic. I couldn't stop watching it.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to just rewatch the entire series again, like from start to finish, because it's so good.
All of it.
I think this, you could argue that this season's probably the best one they've done.
I think so.
I think like it could be a close battle between the first season. I think the first season might have the edge of the nostalgia and the novelty of it, but this one is
presenting something new, something different.
It was very more childlike, but still dark. Where this one is, they're getting older and the production and it's way darker and it's way more horror and it's way more. It explores these deep themes about loss and acceptance and in finding your way.
Right.
And, just absolutely blown away by it.
I I liked it, all aspects of it. At the beginning there was a bit of a slow burn,
right?
But I understood that they were, as far as
because they're all split up, so they have to kind of get them back, and that's what they're still like. There's 2 episodes left, and I thought the part 2 would be an equal amount of episodes, but no, it's just 2 episodes. So we're getting 8 and 9 is in the last. So part 2 on July 1st. But these episodes are like movies. So the first episode 6,
they are
about an hour and 45 minutes, I think.
They are.
And the last episode
movies. Every episode is a movie.
But the last episode is 2.5 hours long.
Wow.
And according to the Duffer Brothers, they're actually still working on it right now.
They're still working.
Yeah. So that's why they broke it up, because they wanted to get something out and give people something to talk about, and then build up this hype, and because they're working on 2 movies at this point. To finish this off.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And I was thinking, I was actually wrong last time we talked. I thought it was the last season. They're still going to do a season 5.
Wait a minute. Whoa. Yeah. They're still going to do a season 5?
Yeah.
They're really milking this.
Well, the thing that is interesting is the Duffer Brothers are suggesting they're going to do a time jump, because the actors are they progressively get older than the characters are.
That's right.
So they're thinking about doing like a time jump in this series.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But where else is he going to take it? I mean, I understand kind of,
Well, man, you could have said that for the last season. Like, where else are they going to go? But now we got this season 4 where it's like we get back to world building. Like they're really building up this world.
Well, they're building it on top of
Vecna and
they're building right on top of everything else that they've set up.
Now we know for sure that 11 is the one that created the upside down, or at least accessed it, like through her powers
at the beginning.
Because she's one that sends 1 through the
spoiler. Spoiler.
If you haven't seen it by now, we'll put a little flash up there. Spoiler. If you haven't seen it by now, it's on you. But
yeah, it's out there.
But yeah, that's I love that world building and I think they did a good job too with the avoiding the uncanny valley. I mean, it's a little bit there, but it's believable that 11's back in, because it's an 11 that's younger than the 11 we met in season 1. So she's a couple years younger in those flashbacks where she's revisiting her memories. She's almost doing like a what does it remind me of, where you revisit your memories? It's almost like an Eternal Sunshine moment, where it's like
it was kind of like that, and she was reliving
these memories.
Those memories.
But instead of losing something, she's gaining something back.
Right, because she's
gaining her memories back. Yeah, she put these things out of her mind.
Right, because of the trauma, so she hid them.
And in the beginning, I love how they do this. Like, I was so prepared to be like, oh wow, that's such a great like dichotomy between her being like a total batshit crazy murderer,
right?
And losing her cool. But then it, obviously, spoiler alert, you realize that
to see
it actually wasn't her that killed those kids. It was number 1,
which is in filmmaking terms, the okie doke. They pulled the okie doke on you. They led you down one path.
Speaking of
completely something different.
Vecna, I read that majority of it is practical effects. The character.
Really?
Yeah. So took
Well, that's
inspiration from
fantastic.
things like sea creatures, sea life, even like trauma patients where people have skin bruising, lesions, anemia. They took inspiration from Freddy Krueger, Pinhead from Hellraiser, and this costume was mostly foam, latex, and silicone.
Okay.
It took
great.
25 different parts to the costume, and it took the actors 6.5 hours to get in character. Which is kids, if you're wanting to get into filmmaking and be an actor, that's kind of what you have to look forward to.
Yeah, just sitting in makeup for about 6
getting up at
hours.
5 in the morning, and
that's a whole day of work.
Yeah,
that's honestly.
And then
you act.
you act.
Yeah.
But they said that they made it that part of it a little bit like what they couldn't do obviously was a post, but the majority of it was practical effects.
Yeah, because there was
and I like they did such a good job where you really believe that these are separate characters. You don't think that one the person that you meet as the man, he looks nothing like the guy until you know that they're the same character. Then you're like, oh, he does look. You can see like the cheekbone structure and like the eyes. You're like, oh, that's him.
It isn't. Yeah. Well, I mean, I didn't figure it out up until the very end, but I knew that there was something fishy.
Yeah.
I knew that there was a setup and payoff that was happening while I was watching the series. Right. So I saw it. And then every time she went back into the tank and revisited her memories, which got a little bit confusing at one point. I wish they visually would have done something to indicate that I'm in the past, because it was just kind of like they did a lot. And by the way, they did a great job of like having, maybe 4 story arcs happening at the same time?
Yeah, you have
right?
You have well, now I'm hitting the damn blank on the characters. The Dungeons and Dragons guy, what's his name?
Was Eddie.
Eddie, great character, by the way. We'll talk about him.
Fantastic.
You have his storyline with them thinking he's the murderer.
Right.
You have the storyline which is tied to 11's, but like Will, who's going through his own thing.
Right. Well, that's kind of.
And then you have
then you have the guys that moved away that are
11 and Will moved to LA.
Yeah, that's right.
With Joyce.
Right,
yeah.
with Joyce. All right. And then you have the Hopper storyline.
Yeah, the Russian prisoner,
that's part of it.
With Jaqen from Game of Thrones being his.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. I noticed it. I noticed the speech. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. I know the man. I know that man. The man has no face. Yeah, I know that guy.
All these. And then got to give it out to Sadie Sink playing Maxine.
She did a great
Max
job.
Mayfield is like her.
And that's another story.
And my favorite scene.
With Lucas.
And my favorite scene is obviously like because I've been listening my ass off to Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill lately, and but that scene where she's in the graveyard and she's giving her like Dear Billy speech, and then she gets pulled up, and I mean that was just one of the most phenomenal scenes I've ever seen. In terms of like a television series.
Yeah, that was a good.
I mean those kids have like serious acting chops, and they have great chemistry, and they're really tied there.
It's fantastic, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw those kids grow up.
That's the
thing. I saw them grow up, and they're doing such a great freaking job.
Yeah,
man.
they have massive careers ahead of them for sure.
Yeah,
and,
man. I do hope so. I honestly do hope so.
It's giving shout outs. We can give shout outs all day, but I don't think there's really a weak link in this whole cast.
No. Well, like I was saying, I think they did a great job with the 4 story arcs.
Yeah,
because it's a lot to say,
and they're all going to coalesce together at some point. Because that's the thing; they're all still trying to find their way back to each other.
That's the whole point. Yeah. So at the end of the previous season 3, it was kind of like they all disparted and they were all separated, and things got disjointed and all of that. And Hopper, they thought he was dead and all this other stuff. And then it seems like in season 4, it's kind of coalescing all together, and it's all coming back to the root or the start of it all after this long, very long, arduous, crazy freaking journey.
Yeah.
Hopper's coming back, and then we get to know why 11 is number 11, and if there's an 11, there has to be a number 1.
Right. Yeah.
So that is very interesting.
That's one thing I noticed too is the number. I was like, well, so they have all these kids. The lowest one was 2. So I'm like, well, where the hell was 1?
Right.
And I noticed too that the lower the number they got, the older they were. I was like, well, one has to be, even older than that.
The oldest one.
And
yeah.
I'm kind of like, well, shame on me for not even catching it earlier, but I should have been like, well,
it was a nice setup.
Yeah, who's this orderly or whatever that is? Why is he so invested? Why does he hate this guy?
Well, that's what I was so that's what I was going to get to. I saw them kind of whenever she would go into her memory. And again, like I said, they should have done a better visual distinction.
Yeah.
I mean, they should have maybe desaturated it a little bit whenever she went back into her memory or done something different. I don't know. But I would have appreciated a distinction between the two kind of things. But whenever she would go back into a memory, you had this orderly that would help her out all the time. And then for a while, it kind of got to me and I was like, what's he getting out of this?
Yeah. Why does he hate Brenner so much?
Yeah, like what's going on? Why is he helping her so much? What is he getting at? Who is this guy? Who is this dude? All up until now, I've never seen this guy before, all the way up until now. And then I'm seeing this guy and he's helping her out and he's giving her these little tips and doing all this shit. And he's getting beat up.
Yeah.
He's putting himself on the line. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's something up. There's something.
And he's got a bigger role to play, and we haven't figured it out quite yet.
Okay. So in filmmaking, I'm going back to college filmmaking class. There was always this thing in when setting up plot devices and MacGuffins and all this, all this stuff. There was always this thing called a setup and payoff, where you set something up earlier on, and then you
people forget about it.
You forget about it, and that's the point. They want you to forget about it, but then there's a payoff at the end,
and you go, "Oh shit!"
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So I felt like that was coming. I felt like they have to be showing this guy for a particular reason. There's a setup. There's a setup here. I haven't figured it out. They're being very, very clever about it. And then it started to get to the point and started, when the stakes were getting higher and higher, it started to get to a point. And then I knew something was wrong at the point where she was about to escape through that little tunnel in the basement.
Yeah.
And she was helping him out. And that's when it got to the point. I was like, she's being tricked.
Yeah.
She's being tricked, man. I don't like how this guy, he's getting something out of it.
He kind of wanted to do like this Palpatine thing where he corrupts the hero and brings him into his plan.
Right.
Because that's the reason why he didn't kill her in the whole mass murder thing.
Right.
And he's like, you can join me and together we can.
That's what. That's exactly what it is.
She's like, oh hell no, Mister. Throw you in the wall.
It was a force fight.
Throw you in the wall.
There was a force fight,
and then created the upside. Well, I don't think she created the upside down. I think she created the link between it. I think the upside down always existed. Like it's an alternate dimension.
Tapped into it.
Yeah, and then we get another thing is this character Vecna, who's supposed to be I love how the whole Dungeons and Dragons thing too, how they rationalize who these villains are based on their experience with the games,
right?
And
not just Dungeons and Dragons.
Right,
there's Lord of the Rings.
But like Dustin, he's like, well, he's like, because they're still talking about the Mind Flayer, and the whole idea is the Mind Flayer is just still the all-encompassing power, and Vecna's like this general.
Right.
If the Demogorgon was a knight, then this is the general and stuff like that.
Or is that right?
Well,
could it be the other way around?
Well, I think that, and maybe they're honest, because if they're going to get a season 5, and obviously this villain has to be dealt with this season, so maybe the season 5 is where we get into that overriding force, the actual force behind the other forces. Because the Mind Flayer, as we know, it made the appearance, but then it
died in season 3.
Supposedly. The physical form of it dies, but the upside down version, where the big shadow, like the huge monstrosity, that kind of just took off.
Yeah.
And then we have this character who's it makes sense too why this guy is so tied to Hawkins, and that's why he's killing people in Hawkins,
right?
Because that's where he came from, and he's pissed off that he's doing this. You're bad, I'm going to kill you, or you have suffering. He's ending people's suffering, is what it is.
It's twisted.
Yeah, it's twisted. It's a roundabout morality, but
right, very, very twisted morality that he's got going on there. Whatever his justification is. I don't know. You know what I thought, and this is just my personal opinion. I thought that, they're saying that all right, the mind flayer is the master, and then Vecna is like the 5-star general. But what if it's the other way around?
Well, I mean, but that wouldn't make too much sense because because he got pushed into the Upside Down, which in my opinion always existed, so that obviously already had to be there, and then he got corrupted by the forces within it. Like, it changes his physicality. So I think there definitely has to be something above him. As Qui-Gon Jinn said, there's always a bigger fish.
Very true. Very true.
So I think that's what season 5 is going to deal with,
Okay.
and I'm glad they're still going with season 5, and it'll be interesting to see. Maybe with the whole time jump thing, maybe they're thinking that they'll do this. Well, there might be a piece, like they think that this is the end or whatever, and then they kind of go about their lives, and then all of a sudden something comes out of again. Or
to be honest, I think this is a masterful world building setup.
Yeah,
because they can really take this to so many other places. They can really go to so many other
they
places.
could have done. They could have been. I think most people would have been fine if no, they didn't really tap into what the hell it was all about. But they decided to do that anyways, and now they're really with this isn't. They're opening up the whole
it's good to leave a little.
They're running the gauntlet with this world building, and they're really expanding. What was this little tiny story that it's like, oh, I wonder what that's about. Maybe we'll never get that.
Right.
But it's just boom. They really open it up, and they're really tapping into.
They might. Yeah. I mean, they can. They can go into explaining what the Upside Down is and how it came about and how they tapped into the Upside Down and whether or not there's more than one.
Yeah.
Right. So they can go down that route, but I think it's a good setup. I think as a storyteller, it's good to set up this world because you can kind of go in different places with this.
There's so much room. They're not shoehorning themselves into a certain path. They can go anywhere they want. Like this season, for example, alone, it's like, well, I never expected something like this to happen. It was like, oh, they're just going to do more of the same, and it's more of the same, but it's way different.
They up the ante in every season. Started off with the Demigorgon, then it went to the Mind Flayer, then it's just, and it just kept going up, and now we have this new villain, and I'm like, I'm invested, man.
Yeah.
I'm all in.
He's like the link between the physical and the alternate dimension because he's not born in that. He got pushed into it.
Yeah,
and maybe maybe what we'll see too is maybe there's a threat to 11 because she has the same kind of powers. Maybe the reason he became so corrupted in the Upside Down was because the powers that he had, and maybe there's a connection. So maybe 11 might be at risk for being corrupted in that regard.
Yeah, she does have a mean streak, and you kind of saw that. You kind of saw.
Well, you see it all the time. She has a short. She has spent so long in captivity. She's got that caged animal personality a little bit, where she doesn't quite know how society runs, and she's still figuring things out.
She's still figuring it out. Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed, but she totally took after Joyce's style with the bangs and the long hair and the flannels.
Yeah.
She really looks
kind of
pulling that whole
You're
one
gonna
on
emulate what you're around. So
yeah. I mean, but Will with the bowl cut still is kind of like, come on, dude, you gotta get together. All right, so what do you got? What do you got on yours? What did you watch again or recently?
All right, so Stranger Things, like I said, hooked me, and great storylines. They have a lot to say, massive. Like I said, 4 different story arcs to follow, and I'm invested in each one of those, so that's great. I'm also watching The Boys, which is on episode 3 now.
Season 3.
Season 3. Episode
you're on.
3.
Okay. Oh, it's not a binge show, but it gets released like weekly.
Right, it gets released weekly.
Okay.
Right,
yeah.
It's not a binge show. It's not like Netflix.
Okay.
So they're up to episode 3. So far, I think they're doing great.
Yeah. I'll admit, I haven't seen one bit of The Boys.
Haven't seen one bit of it. Okay.
I saw. I always like. I'm gonna put myself through it and watch it. I'm not a big overt gore guy.
I get that.
I know I got to get beyond that to appreciate. I know it's a good story. I've heard great things about it all the time. I know it's that satire of
it's complete satire. It's absolutely.
It's almost like on a Watchmen level, right? Where they they kind of parody what superheroes would be like in real life.
It's a deconstruction.
Yeah,
it's a deconstruction of it. And yes, it is. It's taking that what superheroes, not superheroes, but characters, human characters, taking human characters and their flaws and all of their imperfections, and bringing that into the superhero world, basically, which I think is pretty genius. It's turning it on its head.
Okay.
So The Boys was created by Garth Ennis, great comic book writer. I follow him. And what led me to The Boys, and this is back prior to the TV series, was The Boys was a comic book that came out in the 90s. And prior to that, he created this comic book called The Preacher. I don't know if you've heard about The Preacher.
It sounds familiar, but I haven't heard about it.
So this writer is fantastic, and I'm going to revisit all of this. I think I'm going to revisit reading the Boys and The Preacher all over again. But this guy is very subversive in the ways of like Alan Moore did with The Watchmen.
Okay.
So he'll take a particular theme or particular story or whatever, he'll turn it on its head. Kind of like what Alan Moore did. He took The Watchmen and he was like, well, not all superheroes are perfect, and some of them are assholes. Yeah. Right? A lot of them will be assholes. If we're taking actual human beings, actual human characters, a lot of them are just like, they're going to be corrupt. They're going to do wrong shit. And if they have power, then, ultimate power is ultimate corruption.
Yeah.
So he takes that and he puts it into his stories. Ennis did that. Ennis did that with Preacher. The TV series did an okay job in portraying that, but the book is, you can't even tell by some of the shit that's in the book because it would make people cry. And the series, the comic book series of The Preacher, is his biggest critique on religion,
okay,
and society as a whole.
Right.
So, the idea of the Messiah and what that might look like, and if the Messiah came back, and there's comedy in it, and there's dark humor, and it really is all satire. But then there's a bigger message there, and he's taking the absurdity of it all, because there is a bit of absurdity to it, and he is pushing it to the maximum limit.
Okay,
like he's pushing that absurdity to the very, very edge. And that's what he did with The Boys. He took this idea of, okay, well, let's suppose we actually had the Avengers in real life.
Yeah.
What would that look like? How would that affect society?
Yeah.
In the grander scale of things? And it's not going to be all pretty and roses and peaches and all that. He's focused on the darker side of human beings, right? So he's looking at like what corporations will do with this, what the government will do with this, how the media,
unchecked power, basically,
power, and that's what Homelander is, who is the Superman, of this world. If you are the most powerful being on this planet, you can be an asshole and nobody can stop you,
right? Yeah.
Pretty much. Yeah. Like you can fly around and do whatever the hell you want. And and he takes it to the limit. He takes it to the most absurd limit. Like, this guy is just awful. He's an awful person. So it's pushing it there.
Yeah.
It really is pushing it.
It like digests and regurgitates human behavior, and it does. Makes you look at yourself, basically.
It does. It takes an honest,
examine what morality means, and
right.
Yeah. Okay.
It takes an honest view at human behavior with power.
Okay. What
you would do with power.
Yeah.
It looks like morality. It looks like decadence, things like that. What would you? And I'm pretty sure some of the people that have seen The Boys would look at some of the sexual situations, like what you would do with power. It gets pretty creative.
I've heard there's a scene or two where it's like a little bit brutal.
It's super brutal, man. Yeah. So that's what makes it interesting. You have your Disney version of superheroes, which we're all very used to.
Yeah.
Clean
cut.
Very clean cut, and that type of stuff. But then you have
I could do this all day, Captain America.
yeah, you have that, which is fine. These are great moral stories. But Garth Ennis, he just was like, no, that's not the type of story I want to tell. I want to tear that apart. I want to tear that fantasy apart and show you the dark, like how it would look like.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so that's The Boys in a nutshell. And I do like where season 3 is going. I'm on the 3rd episode right now. And the first episode was enough for me. I cringed. I thought I mean, you know, and I have a hard stomach. Like I'm a filmmaker and I've seen a ton of shit, and I can deal with a lot of stuff. But this caught me by surprise.
Oh,
man.
really?
I would never have imagined. It made me cringe. I was like, are they actually doing? No way are they doing that. Oh, they're gonna do that. Oh, wait a minute. What? Like, it's very surprising.
Okay.
So yeah, I recommend you watch it, man. Yeah, we could discuss it. But it's there's, you know, and they are kind of filling that niche of shock value as well. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
They are kind of going in that direction, and it works.
Yeah.
You know, as far as, you know, creativity and telling these kind of stories, and they are deviating from the comic at this point.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
these are fresh stories.
Yeah, they're still using the very same characters.
Okay.
But they're going a different route with it. And they're full on deviating from the comic book at this point. But I'm still interested in seeing where it goes. So yeah, definitely thumbs up for me.
I think that's definitely on my list to watch that next. Yeah.
Yeah, check it out. Check it out, man. All right, so moving along. Let's get to some of the good stuff.
All right, so Top Gun Maverick.
All right, so I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, dude, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. I would say it's as close to a perfect blockbuster that you could get to.
Really?
I mean, it's phenomenal. It's got like and for those who care, it's got a 97 RT score. You know, like it hasn't really been a bad word about it. It just works. It works so well. And I mean, I'm watching it. I'm like, well, this is basically Top Gun again. But it's not one of those where it's not like Force Awakens or whatever, where it's like, oh, this is just episode 4 or whatever. You know, it's like, wow, it hits the same kind of beats, but and it tells it in a fresh way that you don't even care.
Really?
And yeah, I mean,
does it go beyond expectations?
It does. It really does. Like, it really ties into the PTSD that Pete Mitchell Maverick has with, you know, losing Goose and watching his, you know, basically, like, you could argue surrogate son becoming a pilot, and it goes into that relationship. Man, I don't know if, like, you know, spoiler alert, I don't know if you're cool with spoilers.
That's fine.
So in the timeline and all that, Rooster, which is Goose's son's name, Rooster, which is you know,
makes sense.
He had already put his papers into the Naval Academy, and Maverick has pulled the papers, and like he stifled his career because he doesn't want him to. His Rooster's mother makes Maverick promise that he won't let him become like Goose, and
really, very touching.
Maverick has this moment with Jennifer Connelly's character who plays the love interest, which isn't really, it's not overdone. It's not like Kelly McGillis in the first one where it's like, it's one of those movie defining relationships. It's kind of like a backseat, but they had this intimate moment, and, you know, he says, does Rooster know? She says, does Rooster know that that's why? And he's like, well, he's resented me for so long. Why should he resent her too? And like that's really deep. And it brings in that conflict of morality and in your own self-interest and what's, you know,
interesting.
Like, I'd rather have him hate me than hate his mother.
Right.
Which is pretty deep to me.
Yeah,
you know?
It's very selfish.
And then, like, the whole PTSD part, like, there's they have the homage scenes, like, so there's the bar scene and all that, and Rooster's down there playing on the piano, Great Balls of Fire. And at this point, Maverick's been kicked out of the bar because there's this little, like, signage post on the bar. It's like, if you know, if you leave your phone on the bar, or, you know, you disrespect the lady or whatnot, they have to buy a round for the bar and all that. Oh, so she keeps ringing the bell and running up his tab, and his card declines, so he gets thrown out. You know, by two. He gets thrown out by two of the new hotshot pilots. So they carry him, and they're like, "All right, old timer, you're out of here, whatever." Oh, and then he's outside the bar, and he hears Great Balls of Fire start on the piano, and he has this like PTSD moment because he flashbacks to him and Goose playing that song on the piano in the bar in the first movie, and he's sitting outside and he's watching, like he's got this like dead face, and you see Jennifer Connelly's character kind of notice, and she's like, oh shit, this guy's going through some stuff right now, and like that's the whole dichotomy between what's right and what do I want is really evident, and they do a really good job, and
interesting.
It's very heartfelt in that moment, but then it goes straight back into the action, and it's like I said when I talked to you about this before, like Tom Cruise pops up in the opening of the movie before it even goes into like the cold open and all that, and he's like, I want to thank you guys for being here. We did this for you. It's real planes. He's like, it's real G's, real speed, and we made this movie for you guys, and we wanted you guys to see it on the big screen in the best way possible.
I think
so
that's amazing.
He's like, thank you guys for being. That's why it was delayed for so long. It was supposed to come out 2 years ago, and they could have. I'm sure the studios were like, let's put it on streaming and all that, and he's just like, no, because as much as you can criticize Tom Cruise for certain things like the whole Scientology, whatever, he still elevates movies to a whole new level, and he's a
filmmaker.
He's not only is a filmmaker, he's a fanboy, and he loves movies so much. He elevates. He wants to bring that new sense of like let's take this and make it way better. And he could do his own stunts. I mean, he does all his own stunts, but he could be one of those guys that just him does his own stunts. But no, he actually but he elevates the other actors to do their own stunts too. Like he's like, I want you guys to be on my level. Let's do this. And
that's what I heard. Like,
and like they actually all got into those planes. And they experienced real G forces. And apparently Tom Cruise got so good at feeling the G's that he was able to smile on camera while operating the remote camera or the camera in the cockpit.
Really?
Because they had the actors they trained on those cameras to be able to operate them while they're in there. To get those shots. So he was able to smile, have G's.
Well, they had to.
Yeah.
Because nobody. I mean.
Well, yeah, but
nobody else.
That's the level of commitment that they put into that movie. They could have done like mostly CGI and it's like just trying to.
They could have done that.
But Tom Cruise is like, nope, we're gonna
behind a blue screen. They could have done that.
They're actually flying.
No, honestly, in the first Top Gun, that's what they did because they were in a studio and they had a screen in the back, and they had the cockpit and then the camera there,
blue screen,
and then they had these hydraulics moving the planes up and down. But no, this is legit. Which is taking it to the. Honestly, an obscene next level.
And the pacing is great. Like the editing is just fantastic. You don't feel like there's really a slow moment in the film. You could argue that there's a point in the movie where it does slow down, and it's the conversation between Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise. Which is their characters.
Well, you need these kind of breaks to slow things down.
So the whole thing is that Tom Cruise's character Maverick he's been the Navy, he's a naval aviator for so long, but he's still a captain. And he's
and there's a reason
constantly insubordinate, and he doesn't want to ever get.
He doesn't get promoted.
He doesn't want to get promoted. He's like, this is where I belong, and this and that. But you find out that it's Iceman, who is the commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet at this point in the movie, has been the one that's been backing him up every time he screws up and keeps bringing him back to the Navy.
Interesting.
And at this point in the movie, they're training. He's called back to Top Gun to train these new this team of fighters to go take on the unnamed enemy, which is the same thing that happened in the first one. They don't ever name the enemy. It's just a mission. And he's the one that's supposed to train these guys. And that's where Rooster is part of the crew. And he's at conflict and all this. And, at one point, Iceman, you see the conversation through texting, which I thought was kind of a neat thing to do. Because sometimes, that could be just really shittily done. It's just, but they do it really well. It's this brief and you see him talk and he's like, oh, I need to see you. I need to talk to you. He's like, and they have this moment where it's the characters reunite and they write Val Kilmer's illness into the movie. He can't speak because he has cancer in the movie, and he's doing like this typing thing. He does get a line though because he musters up the strength to talk, gets a line, but you can just tell it's not just the characters. It's Val Kilmer and Tom Cruise, having a heart to heart. And Tom Cruise actually said he wouldn't make the movie unless Val Kilmer was.
That's right. I heard about
in
that.
it. So, and if you guys have seen the documentary Val, which we'll talk about soon, it makes it all the more like heartfelt, and it's very beautiful. And that's just Tom Cruise is really, in my opinion, like the last true Hollywood hero.
Yeah, Hollywood big action star, right?
Yeah.
that's true.
It's a blast. So it's a huge ride. It's fun. I've seen it twice now. I'd probably go see it again.
Yeah. No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow, man. All right. Well, that's definitely on my list, man. And just to kind of pull back from what you actually see on the screen, but the director of this is Joseph Kosinski.
And I think he did some other stuff with Tom Cruise, right? So I think it was.
So I'm taking a look now.
Oblivion. He did Oblivion with Tom Cruise.
Right. He did Oblivion, right? Which was years ago. This is back in 2013, which is a good film.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, it's good.
And then he did Tron Legacy, which is it's a hard sequel to do because it's like 20 some odd years, 20 plus years after the fact.
This is the 2010 movie, right?
This is the 2010
yeah
movie.
The one so the first Tron was like 80s, right?
Right.
It
came out
it almost looked like that David Lynch polygonal, like shitty special effects.
Correct. It was very early on special effects. It was the first Disney film that had any kind of computer generated graphics.
Really?
So it was a big deal.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, man. And I remember seeing it as a kid, and it was kind of cool. The whole concept of like getting digitized and going into the virtual computer realm, going into a computer and being sucked into it. And I thought it was so cool. And then you had the neon glowing kind of suits and all that stuff.
The Nintendo Power Glove.
Yeah, all of that stuff was in there, man. So it was cool. So, Kosinski went ahead and did the sequel to it.
Yeah.
I was expecting another sequel after that.
So it wasn't a reboot, it was a sequel.
It was a sequel. It wasn't a reboot at all. They didn't reinvent it.
Interesting.
They picked up where it left off in an actual time, because supposedly they picked up where he was gone for a certain amount of time because he was stuck in the computer realm.
Right.
They actually picked up from that, and it was the actual time. It was like 30 some odd years or something like that. So it was good. It was very, very well done. And I was like, this guy does have a career. This, he's a very, very good filmmaker. He's paying tribute to the actual source material. And I thought that, this guy, has a very good career coming up. But yeah, he kind of proved everybody right because he did a ton of films. I'm looking at his stuff right now. So.
Yeah, I think Tom Cruise. I think he wanted him to be the director of this movie.
Yeah.
And what's another a touching thing about this is when it opens up, it says a Don Simpson / Jerry Bruckheimer production, which is interesting because Don Simpson died years ago.
Yeah.
And that was who produced the first movie.
Right.
So it was kind of like an homage, because Jerry Bruckheimer's been solo for so long.
Right.
So it went back and used the old Splash, image up there. It's like basically a callback and a tribute to Don Simpson, which I thought was pretty cool.
That's interesting.
So, it's all the criticism Tom Cruise gets. It's like he really does give a shit about these little details, and he's not just an actor on the movie. He's really a driving force in the creative process of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And he has such huge star power that he can actually get away with all this to make things.
Well, it's not just that, because you got to remember that he just doesn't go into a film just being an actor.
Yeah.
And not just any actor has these kind of pull, not just any actor is going to show up on set and say, and start making demands and doing these things. When he works on something, he's a producer on it. That's part of the deal that you get with Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
He's either a producer or an executive producer. He's, when you get to that level, and he also invests in his own films as well.
I was watching Mission Impossible, the first one, again last night, and it
one of my favorites.
It pops up as this is I forget who the second the partner on it, but it was a Cruise / so-and-so production.
That's correct.
And this is back in 96 or whatever.
That's correct.
Even then he already had that say.
That's correct.
That pool.
So you have to So you can't just be an actor.
Yeah.
And make these kind of demands and change things like that. You have to be. You have to be kind of up there as far as the hierarchy is concerned. So that's why a lot of actors.
No one's gonna fire Tom Cruise on a project.
Not when you're executive producer. Because it's like, well, I'm investing into this thing, and I'm essentially calling the shots. So it's not gonna be that easy to get rid of him. So you're gonna have to do what he says. But that makes sense because he's been in the industry for so long that he's going to come into a project, he's going to give it his all.
Yeah.
He's actually investing into the project.
Yeah.
And he's going to make sure
I mean,
that
not,
it does
not
well.
only like his time, his money, and all that, but also his body and his mind.
All of it.
And
man.
another cool thing too is at the end of it, you get this neat little, it's the end of the movie. It's like it's done. This shot where he actually he flies his own. I think it's a P-51 Mustang in the old school World War II fighter.
Oh yeah,
fighter planes.
that's right. Yeah.
It starts with him rebuilding this thing in his hangar or whatever. And at the end of the movie, it's him and Jennifer Connelly in the plane. He's actually flying it, and like that's how the movie sends off. And
No kidding.
Yeah. So it's
wow, that's actually cool.
Yeah,
man.
it's pretty interesting.
That's not bad. All right.
And then shout out to Miles Teller's performance. For those who've seen Whiplash, that's who the main character was in that movie.
That's right.
Miles Teller plays Rooster, Goose's son, and like uncannily looks like him. He's got the pencil mustache and all that.
Right.
It's not quite
I saw that. Yeah.
it's not quite Addams Family with the thin one, but it's not quite the 30-year-old beard. It's not.
Right. Yeah.
But I've been seeing like a bunch of like TikToks and Instagram reels and stuff like that where it's like the summer of the stash is coming because it shows like a lot of dudes like shaving their stuff in the stash.
Oh man!
So
it's a resurgence.
Look out for the the bunch of good luck naval recruiters because you guys are gonna get a lot of new guys coming in.
Top Gun mustache.
That was Top Gun. I'm gonna go see it again probably, and
Okay.
I'm gonna buy
The third time.
The third time.
Yeah.
You're
3 ahead of me now. All right. So so that's a go for Top Gun.
That's definitely a go.
That's
on
the list. It's on the list for me. All right. So next up, and this is going to be a touchy one.
Yeah.
Right. So Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
Right. The Obi-Wan series. Obi-Wan Kenobi. All right. Let's get into the nitty gritty. We've been lightly touching on it. All right. So you're all caught up.
I am. I watched the new one last night.
Right.
As much as I've been slightly disappointed by the series, I still sit till midnight to watch the new one.
I did too. I caught it.
I gotta say, I like the new one. This episode a little bit better than the other ones. We get a few moments that are good. Some moments that are bad.
Yeah.
I gotta say, first off the bat, just if you compare the production value between Stranger Things 4 and Obi-Wan Kenobi, it's clearly evident that there's a lot of corners being cut with this series.
Yes.
I think the over reliance on what's the backdrop thing called
The volume.
Yeah, the volume
Yes.
is I think that the legit name is Stagecraft is the the actual it's the technology is called Stagecraft, which interestingly enough was developed by ILM. So you would think that this high standard in the industry would be able to develop something that's seamless.
It's becoming a little bit of a crutch.
It is, and it was done well in Mandalorian. Like they used it when they needed to.
Yeah.
It's good for big expansive scenes where you have a lot of room in the background. But when you're doing it in these interior shots, it's very obvious they're using it.
Yeah.
And if you notice in these shots in the interior, like in the
not even. I think in some of the city shots.
Yeah.
Like in episode 3 where they were in the city.
Yeah. Where everything that looks like either interior or kind of enclosed space, it's like this cavernous. It's this cavernous like thing. Where like for example, like in the latest episode where the actress from Game of Thrones who plays Ilaria Sand in that, I forget her actual name, but she's at the terminal. Like that room is like way too big. Like it shouldn't be that big, and it's like it's obvious that it's mostly a digital backdrop creation.
Right.
And then if you compare it to like Stranger Things 4, where it's like it's all real sets and it's all on location and stuff, and it's a company that has so much money. And they that's been.
I don't think that. Yeah, man. I have a.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't even know where to begin, man. I'm becoming a little bit speechless here.
Yeah.
Because I really don't even know where to start. And the entire time, I saw it last night. I resaw episode 3, and then I saw the new episode, which was episode 4. Yeah, man, it just seems like it's low budget.
Yeah, it's like a CW show.
That's exactly what I was about to say. It looks like a low budget CW show, and I'm like, this is Disney, this is Star Wars, this is Lucasfilms. It felt low grade than The Mandalorian or the Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah,
and I felt like that was a huge and major injustice to the character of Obi-Wan.
Yeah, I mean, I've been waiting for this series for
everyone has
years.
Everyone has. I mean, listen. Everyone has known Obi-Wan before they even knew I mean, as far as characters are concerned, as in the hierarchy, Obi-Wan's up here and Boba Fett's down here.
Yeah.
Any Mandalorian is all the way down here.
Yeah.
So to me, each one of these episodes should look and feel like a film.
It should. And remember when they were talking about this series, they were saying, "Oh, each episode is going to be like over an hour long. It's going to be like a movie."
Which is
but
it's not
like
true.
the last one we got was only like 38 minutes.
38 minutes.
That includes the credits.
Right.
So you're looking at more like a half hour.
Yeah.
And just underwhelming, and this is a limited series of 6 episodes, and there's no room for filler when you have 6 episodes to do something with.
There's a lot. That's okay. So those are the aesthetics, and then I have issues with the storyline.
Right.
A lot of it doesn't make sense to me. A lot of it is contradictory to canon. It doesn't play well with canon. Yeah. With
years ago, you served my father in the Clone Wars, right? So, and that message alone, it tells me that Leia doesn't know who Obi-Wan is in terms of a personal person.
Correct.
And then why?
But it seems like they have more of a history.
And then Luke, and like the whole point of him going, so it's
Correct.
Like his number one job, his ultimate purpose is to watch over Luke and protect him. There should be stories of him doing that instead of just like, oh, I'm screwing off to go hang out with the Organas, and also
he's gone for a while.
When Bail Organa is like, oh well, she's just as important as he is. Well, that's all the reason to be like, well, that's why I'm staying here.
Right.
I
don't get this.
Look how close the Inquisitor was to killing Owen Lars and finding out that
that's right.
And then the whole fact that she can mind read, but that she doesn't do it there to read Owen's mind.
It's weird. There's a lot of contradictions, man. There's a lot of these small little contradictions in there that I'm noticing, and I'm nitpicking, and I'm again, they're not respecting the source material. They're not respecting the canon. They should be able to fit in certain cool points with what's already there, but it seems like they don't give a shit.
They should be able to deal with this, like the whole PTSD aspect. They should be able to deal with that.
That's part of it. That's
like I would totally believe that he has lost his connection to the Force if he was dealing with that on Tatooine. And I don't know if this is a thing where people have complained about these series taking place on Tatooine too much. Like Disney was like, "Oh, we got to get away from that." And as cool as it is to get a glimpse of Alderaan, it's like, well, we know that planet's just worthless because it's going to blow up in about 7 years.
Pretty much.
And then that's another point too. Is like, well, the old man one that we have is like the stoic. He's back to his master, like the masterful Force user. It's only 7 years away. Yeah, it doesn't seem
he seems too whiny on this thing. He seems too
like clumsy and
angry.
Yeah.
Go back and look at it. Go back like episode 3, episode 2. Because I thought I was missing something, and I went back and saw the episodes. He lashes out at Leia a couple times. He makes a lot of stupid mistakes. And I'm like, is this the same General Kenobi that I'm seeing here? This is supposed to be a Jedi Master, because this guy, emotionally, he seems all over the goddamn place.
And then where the whole thing is, he's like, oh, the Force is, I'm not, screw the Force, and we lost and all that. But then he tells Owen Lars, he's like, well, he must be trained. It's like, well, what is it? Are you are you a master, or are you right? How can you?
He's supposed to be stoic.
How can you train him if you're not
he
even
lost faith?
Exactly. So
there's a lot of contradictions here, man. They're not respecting.
And I would even say like the acting is just very subpar, and it might be sacrilegious to say, but even Ewan McGregor is disappointing me on this one, in a sense. And it could be the writing. It could be.
It is the writing.
But
it's the writing, and
argue that the writing of some of the prequel stuff was just bad. But he still found a way to nail it. But this is worse, I believe.
This is different. I think this is different. Lucas had something to do with the prequels.
Yeah. So
he still kind of made it work.
Yeah.
All right. But Lucas doesn't have his hands on this one, so it's a different kind of story. Kathleen Kennedy and Deborah Cho. Listen, as much effort you're putting into this, I think it's just not working. It's not the same character.
No,
these are not the same characters. It's not canon. Just little stuff.
Yeah. It's becoming
There's, and I was rewatching it again, and there's this part. Do you remember when they were on that it was episode 3 where they were on that lift and they hitchhike right? And then the guy's like, yeah, you can jump in the back.
Oh yeah.
And then he stops, and then there's a couple of troopers
Yeah.
that jump in as well. And then they're having this conversation. The troopers are asking him, this is all back and forth.
This it's a long way, right?
It's a long way.
It's like
So-
a minute later they're there. Yeah.
But no. Even before that, they're asking him a bunch of questions,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So, they say, hey, we're looking for a Jedi. And then they actually say this. They're looking for a Jedi and a little girl. And then here he is, dressed as a Jedi, and with a little girl.
Because the whole point in the previous episode is he puts on his Jedi robes.
So immediately, I'm thinking to myself, this is the thought that came to my head.
Yeah.
As the actor's words, the trooper's words were coming out of his mouth,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, so do you know what they look like? Because I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that they sent the pictures out. Because how else are you going to look for somebody?
Yeah.
Listen, old school wanted posters.
Yeah.
They send out a picture. Look, in The Mandalorian, they sent out a hologram of the person, what the person looks like. So when you're looking for somebody, you have to know what they look like. So the stormtrooper sitting there saying, hey, we're looking for, I'm sorry. But, the stormtrooper sitting there saying, hey, we're looking for a Jedi and a little girl.
Yeah.
And the first thing that pops into my head was like, oh, yeah, do you know what they look like? Because obviously, it's right there. He makes no effort in trying to disguise himself.
Right. Well, it's like that meme I posted where it's like Thor from Ragnarok, where he just covers his face.
He just covers his face.
I'm hiding from.
He's not even covering his face.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
The majority of the time, and a lot of that, when there's a part where she runs away. I remember they were in the city or something like that. She runs away into the crowd because she doesn't trust them, and he's running around. He's 90% of the time he doesn't even have his hood on, or anything. He's not trying. And I'm like, dude, for somebody that's super scared of the Empire, which you keep repeating constantly, I would hide my face. An obscene amount of times. Everything. You probably just only
shave the beard off.
Shave the beard, all of that stuff. You probably will only see my eyes.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of logic that's just not being paid attention to.
It's very campy and uninspired, and
it just almost seems like they kind of threw it together and they rushed it and they kind of shot it without even giving it a second glance or a second thought.
Let's figure out why here, and I think the main reason why is the writer of Obi-Wan. So,
let's take a look.
Joby Harold is a guy who came on to the series after there was previous writers on the series. I can't remember their names, but basically what happened is Disney decided, or Lucasfilm or Kathleen Kennedy, whatever you want to say, decided that we want to go in a different direction, and a lot of these there's parts of the script that were written already, and they brought on Joby Harold, and Joby Harold is a writer who did movies such as King Arthur, Legend of the Sword, which was absolute horseshit,
it was,
and Army of the Dead, which is also absolute horseshit.
It was.
And
Edge of Tomorrow was all right.
And he's got Transformers: Rise of the Beast coming out soon, which I don't think is going to be anything worth watching at all. So, and I wonder, where, what is the decision process here with Kathleen Kennedy and Disney that they want to bring on these subpar writers to these shows that are supposed to be so impactful and influential?
This is I mean, these are okay. You're absolutely right, because these shows are culture defining shows. These are shows that define a culture throughout generations, man. These are not easy things that just get tossed around and thrown to just anybody. Anyone as a filmmaker would love to do. This is career defining. If you were handed something like Star Wars or any kind of Star Wars property, that's when I've made it.
Yeah.
But as a filmmaker, if you get handed that and you get entrusted,
I better not screw it up, because then that's a career ender.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So this is just this is what people kind of strive for in this industry, to get material, to get properties like that. So for it to be handed off to someone that might not fit that criteria, or let's see what else you've done. Let's see your track record of dope hits that you've made. and it doesn't look like this guy
it
has
should have been instant. Like, oh, well, this is your resume. No, I'm sorry, get the hell out of here. Like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
like what? Like, where the hell was Lawrence Kasdan at? Who wrote Empire Strikes Back? He's still alive. You know, I'm sure. Like, and, you know, there's plenty of writers out there who could easily. I mean, hell, just hire Dave Filoni, and it would have been fine.
They would have been great.
But I'm sure he's, you know, busy with his baby with Ahsoka, which, you know,
right.
And that's another thing too, is there's all these things coming out that it seems like they just want to like hit.
But does anybody? All right, well, this guy, right?
Yeah.
Does anybody really give a shit about the source material? Because that's the difference,
right?
Right. So you got Favreau and you got Filoni, and Filoni is a fan.
He is the guru.
He is the fanboy.
Yeah.
Because he gives a shit about the source material, and to him, that's the holy grail.
Yeah.
He's not going to desecrate this kind of thing. He
Right.
knows the importance of it.
Yeah,
He knows the millions of people that are just their eyes are gonna be on it.
Yeah.
So he understands the gravity of it all. So he's not going to handle it all willy-nilly. So who's this guy? Does this guy have that same kind of reverence or
like
treatment?
No one's gonna be like, oh, W. Harold wrote this. This would be great. Like no one's gonna have
No.
that. I'm like, well, it's
Does
more like us, who's like, who the hell wrote this piece of crap? And it's like,
right. Does he actually give a shit?
Yeah,
Is he
probably
one of those
probably
fanboys?
not. You know, and it's like, where the hell did he even come from? Like, how does he get these? How does he even get this job in the first place?
Exactly.
You know,
exactly.
Where's the nepotism at? Because it's got to be somewhere.
There, yeah. That's the thing. That's
You know?
the thing. There's some kind of a hookup happening there, and that's what I don't like, because at the end of the day, it's just like, well, fuck, you've messed up this whole freaking thing now. Now we're stuck with this haphazard. We've got 4 episodes in, and
nothing really even makes sense. And you got 2 episodes left to wrap it up, and who knows how, like, these episodes better be 3 hours long each, and they better be freaking amazing.
And another thing. See, I haven't even talked about Vader. Jeez, man. Why did they? First off, all right, the way you deal with Vader is very delicate, man. You see how Rogue One dealt with Vader?
Yeah.
Sparingly, and when they did it correctly.
Right. Yeah.
Right? In my opinion, they introduced Vader way too soon. They introduced Vader in the 3rd episode.
Yeah, Vader should have been a character that came in like either this last episode or like 5 and 6.
Second to last episode.
And like the whole
work up to it.
Duel, like that better just be like a preview to what's coming, because if that's the duel, then that's just bullshit. And there's
bullshit,
you know,
duel.
like so and that
and it doesn't mesh well with canon.
Well, that doesn't even make sense, because it's like, oh well, is your force ability on cooldown because you just put out that fire and then it gets reignited and you're like, oh, I'm done. Oh, he's on the other side of the fire now. I can't get him.
Well,
it's like you just put it out with your force. Like, now, you know,
I don't know. Yeah. There's a lot of inconsistencies, man. Yeah. A lot of it.
Or like he could have just like pulled him up by the force and dragged him over, like brought him to him. But he's, you know. And then the whole for those who remember, it's when last we met, I was but the learner, and now I am the master.
That's what I'm saying. In episode 4, right? When old Obi-Wan, you know, everyone knows it's the famous battle, and then you know Obi-Wan dies and all that, and he becomes a Force ghost. There's no mesh there, and I had to rewatch that. I pulled out my phone while I was watching the battle in what you call it, in Obi-Wan episode 3, and I saw that battle. And I was just like, this doesn't work with canon. I had to pull it up. I had to pull up that conversation again. Yeah, and that whole thing was like, when you met me last, I was but a learner. Now I am the master. Yeah. You know, and it was just like, oh shit, the stakes are high now. Yeah. But that doesn't work well with just
it better be where like Obi-Wan kicks his ass in like the last couple episodes or something, and like, you know, that's the only way it would make sense again, because, you know,
it has to.
You know? And if you look at promotional material, you'll see Obi-Wan standing in the desert on Tatooine with Vader in the background with his lightsaber out. So if you go by the promotional material, they have to get back to Tatooine, and they have to have that last showdown in order for it to make sense. If they don't at least pay it off that way, then this series is an absolute wash.
Yeah, man.
Like, they have 2 episodes to have at least some sense of redemption, and I don't have much faith.
I don't like how they portrayed Vader.
Yeah, which is just so disappointing, because Hayden Christensen really deserved to get this role back, and really just, you know, he never deserved to get ostracized by the like the community and
because of his acting.
Yeah, which was really just the writing was just this kind of horse shit.
Yeah, he did his best.
He's not a really bad actor by any means. He's got some good movies out there. Like Looper's a good movie.
Right, he does.
He's got some stuff. So I really hope that. But there is potential for more hated redemption because he is in the Ahsoka series.
Yes, that's right. And hopefully that.
Which will be very interesting because that tells me that it's either a flashback or the Ahsoka series takes place in multiple timelines, because it's supposed to be her looking for Thrawn, which takes place after Vader's dead.
Right.
So
we don't know what happens to Ahsoka, so that's a fresh thing.
Right, but if Vader's going to be in it, then it has to be some kind of a flashback.
Right, because he's the Jedi hunter.
And
that's what he's known as. He's known as
another thing too is a lot of people were expecting that we'd get more like Clone Wars flashbacks in this series with Obi-Wan, where they actually get to show Hayden as Anakin Skywalker again. There's some expectation of that going on, and I think a lot of us probably thought that it would happen in the first episode where it opens up to going back to Order 66.
That would have been nice.
Which when it first opened, it was like Order 66. Nice. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be great, like right. And then it's just like, pew, and then it just fucking die. Oops. Dives bomb.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And you got a little bit of that. We got a little bit of the younglings trying to escape. I remember, I think it was
the rumor is that the one of the little girls is supposed to be Reva in that, like,
in that scene.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which would make a little bit sense, because like, why the hell it's basically becoming the Reva show at this point. I think there's too much focus on her, and I think anybody that follows the canon in this, like especially like Rebels, is like, well, she's got to die because she doesn't exist in Rebels.
Right.
The fifth brother and the other sister, they exist, but there's no third sister. She's not even mentioned.
Right.
So
interesting.
I thought that the whole pissing off Vader thing too. Like he went a little bit too easy on her. Like he should have just been like,
dude, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't know, I don't like this portrayal of Vader. Yeah. When he went into the town, did you see that? Yeah. When he went into the town, he just started choking people left and right. Yeah. I was like, no, that's not. He doesn't waste his time with this shit.
Yeah,
like what does he do? There's no purpose to him just force choking and dragging someone.
He doesn't even just show up in random places like that either. He designates other people to go do that because he's got.
That's bullshit work. That's bullshit work.
He's got better things to do.
He's got other things to fucking do. He's not going to waste his time checking things out.
And then another wasted opportunity too is why the hell is there no Emperor in this? There should be like just imagine just like a little bit of a cameo with Ian McDiarmid.
Yeah,
there's a little cameo where it's like okay, introduce Vader episode 5 or something, and he's like oh yes, master. Like this, you just see a glimpse of the Emperor fade off. Like that could have been
if they would have played it off.
So that could have been so.
But they can't even get Vader right. So I don't know. I don't have too much.
Hey Disney, if you guys need new writers, we're available.
Just saying, I've soaked in a lot of the expanded universe material.
I think that's probably enough on that. Unless we want to go for another hour on Obi-Wan Kenobi.
No, I can, but I don't want to.
We can get back to that in a couple weeks when we do our next one and really wrap up the series.
Yeah, I'm just not a fan right now. It's low quality, and in my opinion, this is the last thought. My opinion, I can understand Favreau and Filoni being tied up because, of course, they're working on their
Mandalorian
babies.
And Ahsoka. And
they're working on their babies. However, they should have handed off, the directing and the writing. I'm not too sure who they should have handed it off to.
Yeah.
Definitely somebody better, not this guy.
Yeah.
But the directing, they should have handed it off to Robert Rodriguez.
Okay.
To me, he doesn't miss. That guy doesn't miss. He did a ton of episodes for the Book of Boba Fett.
Right. Yeah.
The first few episodes, I think it was, if not the majority of them. He did a couple in The Mandalorian near the end of the last.
Well, Deborah Chow had a good episode of Mandalorian too, but I think that's also it's the people that are behind her that make it. It's the writing is better and the showrunners are better and all that. So
but this is her first.
And I imagine that on set with Faz and Filoni, they have a little bit more ability to be like, hey, we're gonna push back on you, Kathleen Kennedy, and say that we don't want this.
Well, they have very famous. I mean, especially Favreau.
Yeah,
has a very famous relationship, for those who know, with Kathleen Kennedy, and it's not.
Yeah.
They're consistent, and it's for good reason,
Yeah.
because Kathleen feels like, Lucas handed it down to her.
Yeah. Well, George also handpicked Filoni to be the the curator of Star Wars.
Absolutely did,
yeah.
and he left it in good hands. And I'm just saying that just look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie, man.
Okay, so
all right, so let's move on.
Yeah.
All right, let's cover some more of what we've seen, and maybe this is a little older one.
Yeah.
But I figure that this is something that we both enjoyed. We both watched this. And this is Everything, Everywhere,
All at Once.
All at Once.
And
right.
I would say
What are your thoughts?
I would say it's more than an enjoyment. It is I think it's a personal love story to our love of filmmaking. And
In a way, yeah.
I would say that immediately it became either like in my top 5, if not my top 3 movies of all time.
No kidding.
Instantaneously.
No shit.
So
why is that? What is it that puts it up there?
I just think it's such a beautiful written, beautifully edited, and the story itself and the acting is really what sells it. And it's hard to describe. It's hard to put into words, because when you feel a force so powerful, it's almost like trying to describe what love feels like. And you know what? In a sense, that's really what the movie is about: is pure human love and human nature.
Yeah, you're right. That's the all-encompassing.
And if you want to get into multiversal talk, compared to Doctor Strange, this was the multiverse of madness, and this is what
100%.
I
Completely agree.
I'm glad they came out about the same time, because I probably would have been a little bit more disappointed in Doctor Strange 2 if I hadn't seen this movie.
I have, no, you know what? You're right.
Yeah.
I think I'm not too sure if there was a bit of
studio conflict maybe in Doctor
well,
Strange.
not just studio conflict, but just kind of conscious awareness, as far as like both teams understanding that these type of themes were coming up, and that they needed to release them at a very competing time.
I think
because if one came out more,
right
before the other with significant amount, like a significant gap, one would have won and would have been compared to the other one as
right. Yeah, I'm not sure if it was calculated, but I think it was definitely impeccable timing that these movies came out together, because like you said,
I don't think it was a coincidence.
Like you said, it could have been I'm not necessarily sure that they were like, oh, Doctor Strange 2 is coming out, we got to do this movie. I think maybe what it was is they were taking influence because the multiversal talk in the Marvel universe is already coming into fruition.
Well, in general, I think in general, and I'll get into this a little bit later. This is my own personal theory, but go ahead.
Well, like I don't think they necessarily said, oh, Multiverse of Madness is coming out, let's write a movie about the multiverse.
No,
I think the idea was seeded into their heads about the multiverse maybe from before, right. it was already being talked about
at the same time, just the release dates.
Yeah, well, that's up to the studios, right? So I don't think it was the creators' call, probably the studio heads' call that were like, let's do that. Because you're right, if it doesn't matter what movie came out first, it would have been like, oh well, they're just trying to do this, or they're just like it had to happen at the same time, and I'm glad it did, because it gave me just for example, like we're talking about the writing and how beautiful the story is. For those who've seen it, spoilers. It's just to give a quick rundown. It's about this couple who run a laundromat, and they're swamped with their taxes. They're the
troubles of running a business.
They're immigrants. They're not very. This happens all the time. They're not very well versed in what our society does in terms of taxes.
There's a language barrier,
and even those who are from here and born here have a trouble with taxes, because the government makes it so hard to even follow what taxes mean.
Or just owning a business in general.
It's you have to. It's almost like you have to have an over education in taxology, if that's even a term, to understand how this works. And on top of that,
what's legal, what's illegal.
Yeah, so they're trying to navigate this in a world that's unfamiliar to them.
And English as a second language.
Yeah. And so their marriage is falling apart in a sense, and
the family's falling apart.
The family's falling apart. Very. I've heard this. I don't know specifically, obviously, because I'm not the demographic that this movie's
targeting.
Targeting. But apparently there is within the Asian community this very hard, not acknowledging emotion and not acknowledging
vulnerability.
Very. you do this, you do that, and that's what you do, and move on.
You focus on your duty, and it's about being selfless and doing things for the greater good, doing things for your family, doing things for your parents, that kind of aspect.
And Michelle Yeoh is just such an amazing, phenomenal actress. Going back to like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
She doesn't miss.
Yeah, never. And looks fucking. I'll bleep that up. Looks friggin' phenomenal for her advanced experience in this world, and just absolutely kills it. And I can't remember the actor's name who plays Wayman, but
what? Do you not know this guy?
I'm just blanking on it right now. I'm blanking on it.
Well, let me pull it up. But please go ahead and continue.
But long story short, they get what I'm talking about, like beautiful writing and beautiful essence of this movie in terms of love, is they get to a scene in the multiverse where Michelle Yeoh's character is very successful. She's an actress, and she in the beginning they meet in China, and they fall in love, and they both emigrate to America, and they continue and they make a business in the laundromat business. And in this alternate universe, that never happens. She stays put. She becomes a successful actress who goes on to, it almost kind of mirrors Michelle Yeoh's life, where she's just a successful action hero, and she never actually gets together with her soulmate. Right. And they meet. They meet in this premiere, and he's also successful, very successful.
In his own way.
And in his own way, he has money, but they come together and they kind of talk about, what could have happened and all that. And she's explaining to him this whole time of what she's been going through and where she comes from and what their life was. And, it comes down to where he turns to her as he's walking away, and he goes, I would have been happy with just doing laundry and taxes to you for my whole life.
Yeah. Which is huge. So,
just real quick, because she thinks that the defining her success is different than what's actually happened, and in reality, it's the love that they share is what's successful, not what they do in their job.
Right. What is success? That's bringing it.
So I would have been just perfectly happy with doing taxes and laundry for the rest of my life with you.
What's happiness and what's success?
It's so beautiful, and and I think a lot of people can relate to that, even in their younger age, because I think a lot of people, especially like myself sometimes, is, well, what's the point of what I'm doing if I'm not nailing certain goals, or I'm not hitting certain strides in what I perceive to be what's appropriate.
Absolutely.
What do I think that society wants me to do, being monetarily successful or having a family and this and that, and it's really about what matters in your heart, what matters in your soul. Right. That's
at the end of the day, and who you're with.
Yeah.
Who you're with.
And then another scene too is what really hammers that home is later on when she freaks out in the laundromat and she smashes all the glass. And this is
that was an important scene.
And this is like in the middle of him serving her papers. He's the one that serves her papers.
Well, no, she finds
it out. But he was going to. Right. But in this scene where she's smashing it all, the first thing he does is he picks up a broom and he starts sweeping up.
Yeah.
Because it's not about her freaking out. It's about what's important. He's not gonna go in there and chastise her and say,
and not just that, not just the fact that he sweeps up, but what does he do before he starts to sweep up? He actually gets her out of going to jail.
Yeah,
because
that's what's important, because the family sticks together, and
at the end of the day, man, he still loves her. He still cares about her. So, all right, this movie, I gotta say, it is definitely in my top 5.
Okay.
It's definitely in my top 5 because of its uniqueness and because of the story and the overarching message that it's trying to say. It handles a lot. It's a big story.
Yeah,
it's a very big story, and it can be very convoluted and very complicated, especially when you're dealing with multiverse and different realities and all that shit. That can, when you open that can of worms, in filmmaking and storytelling, it can be both good and a bad thing if you don't know how to handle it properly.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But I think they did this very, very well. They handled the culture and the characters that they were portraying. they handled that very well because that came first.
Yeah.
Before it got to the sci-fi stuff, you were introduced to the family.
Yeah.
And you were introduced to the dynamics of the family. You know, you had the father, you know, who was an elderly and they were taking care of.
It was very characterly, it was introducing characters, but not just like a, hey, here's this character, let's go. It was like, hey, let's see how they are. Let's show you the nuances of their interactions and like how she's doing the taxes and he's trying to get her attention and she's just ignoring him because she feels like that's what's important in front of her, like, you know, but it's really not.
It's a regular old family.
Yeah.
You know, with their own hangups and you know, and you see the issues with the mother and the daughter dynamic.
Yeah. Well, the whole like the lesbian daughter thing too is another thing which is probably huge in Asian culture. Yeah.
This is mega huge, especially now. So, you know, they had this type of a dialogue where the daughter is different than what's expected traditionally, and the mother has hangups about that and how to deal with that because of her relationship with her dad, who is living with her and is elderly. Yeah, and then the somehow distant and relationship with the husband, who has a lot of baggage as well, you know, and they deal with that as well. So, I mean, the main character is Michelle Yeoh's character. Yeah. Right? And she's the center of it all. Mm-hmm. And then you have all these different things that come out of it. You have the daughter, you have the husband, and you have the father that she's dealing with. And then she's trying to run a business.
Well, and the grandfather, too.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, that's her father.
Right, yeah.
Right? Yeah. So you have all these dynamics. You have, you know, her father, her husband, and her daughter. Mm-hmm. And she's juggling all of these things.
And the daughter's girlfriend.
And the daughter's girlfriend in there. So you have all these things that are happening. And she's trying to run a business. And she's trying to expand on the business and trying to do too much. Yeah. And she's bad at everything.
She's putting herself everywhere, everything all at once.
Right, exactly. Yeah, which,
everything everywhere all at once. Yeah, exactly. She's doing that to herself.
Right.
You know?
So, you know, and she's bad at trying to do everything and all of this. So it's, you know, and it's an honest dynamic. So it starts off, aside from the sci-fi, before the sci-fi is even introduced, before we get into this world, it starts off with just these honest people just living their everyday, not organized lives, which is, you know, filled with a bunch of uncertainties and shit that they're trying to juggle through. And then this whole world opens up. Yeah. Which she could have never have imagined. And, you know, spoiler alert, you know, she gets introduced to this fact that there is a multiverse out there, and that her life, however it is that she feels about her life and her position at that moment in time, her life would have had different outcomes. So she's introduced to this. So she would have not been, you know, an owner of a laundromat. She could have been all these other different things, a chef or, you know, singer or a bunch of different.
It was like they go into like she was a singer, like you said, like
a martial artist,
or like a
movie star, all kinds of stuff. And now she has to deal with, and this is not just her imagination, which she first thinks that she's going crazy. These are actual things,
universes.
These are actual.
Because they make it a point to say that these are actually real existences that are happening concurrently
and then the kicker is that you can tap in to each.
Well, I like how there's like it's a network of universes. It's not like where it's just spread out in like a circle. It's actually like tied to different points.
There's a ton of different
and like you can't access one that's too far away. You have to get
you have to work your way up to it, which is interesting. Which is very interesting. So the way they built upon that, the way they introduce you to this woman's world and how that branches off, and then the bigger sci-fi story, which only serves the smaller story that's in there. And it really is about love. It really is about what makes you happy at the end of the day. Yeah. You know, whether you're sitting there wherever it is that you are at the moment, and you think that I would have been better off doing X, Y, and Z.
It's the what if.
Right. It's going into the what if. Yeah. And then what if is actually infinite, because that is the multiverse. So if you go into the spiral of what ifs, what if I did this? What if I did that? What if I did this? If you take that into the most extreme version of itself, and you can actually tap in if you can actually tap into all of those what ifs,
Yeah.
and then you actually come up to the conclusion of, well, what is it that really actually makes me happy? What is
Yeah.
it that I actually
The
do
grass,
need?
the grass isn't so green when you get to the other
It's
side.
not- it's
Yeah.
not.
It's the same shade.
It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's the same shade, or it's more brown. It's dead, or it's not what you know.
And maybe it isn't
Yeah.
what you
Yeah.
needed. Maybe what you needed was the simpler
Yeah.
things, and being exactly where you are.
The realization
Maybe is what it is.
that where you're at, it's okay. And it's what
totally
you need.
fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's more than just fine. It's actually appropriate. For,
It's appropriate. It's
Yeah.
what you needed.
yeah.
Yeah. So it's tackling bigger questions.
And that overt success and money isn't really everything. And it's more about the people who are around you and the connections you make. And
Right. Because if you look at
Yeah.
it in the multiverse where she's a big megastar, she doesn't have anybody.
yeah,
She's alone.
Yeah.
She doesn't have a daughter. She doesn't have a husband.
nothing.
She doesn't have anything.
She just has
But
the
that's what- but
approval
that-
of her abusive father. Is basically what it is.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then she actually realizes that, and she's not happy.
Yeah.
And that was the one thing that she was going for,
Yeah.
because she wanted to go back. She was like, "Oh yeah, I was this
I wasted my time with this.
I was this mega
yeah,
star,"
yeah.
and then when she actually sees what that's like, she's like, "Well, shit, man, that's not what I want." It's a very deep, very deep discussions
Yeah.
that they're tackling.
It's
here.
very it's a very humanistic, and it really tackles, like you said, the word tackle is a great example, because it really tackles what it means to be a human being.
Right.
And we're all in this world where we're floating around in this endless void. We're like, we're all just little tiny ants on a rock that's floating around in nothingness.
In space.
And it really, that's what it is.
People forget that.
There is
You gotta zoom out.
there is an entire very large existence out there that doesn't involve us, and in all reality, most of the universe doesn't even know the hell we exist.
Right.
So we're
Specs.
we're born with this in this finite amount of time, and really what it comes down to, this story is making your life mean something in your own terms,
Right.
and not subscribing to something that you think that you should be.
Right.
In
I think you put it
terms of what what you think other people think you should be, or even what you thought you should have been compared to where you are now, because there's always that what if aspect.
Right.
And that's really
well, sometimes that society has a lot to, like, you feel like you should be somewhere based on societal hierarchy.
and that's hugely evident right now with like the social media generation, where everything is everywhere all at once with people's lives, and we're constantly judging ourselves against what other people are doing, and
I should be here.
second guessing ourselves. And in reality, we're all just putting our own highlights on the internet, and we're not showcasing these hardships. And that's what this film does. Is it showcases the actual truth about what it means to be a human being.
Yeah.
And that's why. And like I said, it's hard to, like, I'm still don't feel like I'm doing it justice and putting it into words.
I don't think any of what we say does it justice. You have to watch it.
The best way I can describe it is, I'm not a religious person, but when I finished watching it, I felt like I had a spiritual experience. And I felt like this renewed sense of like just love in my own body. I was like, wow, this is just so incredibly beautiful and incredibly heartfelt. And I'm not going to get into things, but it's been a little hard time for the past couple of years for a lot of us. And we need films like this this is what film is. This is actually what really true film it is and should be. It makes you examine your own self. It makes you examine the world around you, and you have to you have to find where you want to exist within those realms between that. Right. And I think that is what art is all about.
Yeah, it's just kind of cutting through all the bullshit.
It's art.
It is. I couldn't have said it better myself, man.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, that's good stuff.
That's the end of the. No, I'm kidding.
No, that's not the end. I still have more to say. So I want to get back to the husband. I want to get back to the husband. So the husband is actually a very important character.
Oh, no time for love, Dr. Jones.
That's right. That is him.
Yeah.
So
which I quote all the time.
Wayman. I mean that's one of my filmmaking staples. Like
I don't know how to pronounce this. Is K
Huan Kwan.
K Huan Kwan.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. So the man who plays Wayman.
Yeah.
In the film, which is Michelle Yeoh's husband.
Yeah.
He is the same actor from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
Right.
He plays the short round, which is
No Time for Love, Dr. Jones.
Chinese, the Chinese boy, and he is also Data from Goonies.
Oh,
same character.
yeah.
Same character. So he hasn't been in Hollywood in a very, very long time because there aren't enough roles for him, Asian roles.
Okay.
So he's been kind of out of a job for a very long time because he couldn't fit in.
Well, I see he's an X-Men. Who did he play? Additional crew.
Right.
Well, that's a great role.
Nothing there. But yeah, he hasn't had that many roles. Those are just those big 2 blockbuster hits, and everybody knows those 2 characters. Everybody, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and Goonies. They know the character that he plays. He was an excellent child actor, but he hasn't really had that many opportunities because Hollywood hasn't created it for them or created characters that he can go ahead and play. Because Hollywood works off of very strict typecast rules. But he killed it in this.
He did, yeah.
He absolutely killed it in this.
Really well done.
He played opposite Michelle Yeoh, and he was a great complimentary force for her because he's the one that introduced her to the multiverse.
Right.
So when you first see it, of course you see they build the regular world that she's in, and then she gets introduced to this multiverse, and he is the one, his other
plays the alternate universe,
self, right? Because it's mind jumping.
Who had lost his original wife.
He lost his original wife, so he does verse jumping, which is part of the film. And then
very, very Matrix,
Matrix kind of stuff, which I put the 2 together, which is great.
Yeah.
And so he goes into this universe where she's there and exists, and she's living her mundane humdrum life. And he introduces her to this, and then we have this amazing. There's a couple of scenes, but we have these amazing sequences where he kicks ass, man. Like this is a legit Matrix kind of stuff,
right?
Where he knows like a ton of kung fu and all this because he's jumped.
Well, it's almost like Matrix 2, where they can download new powers and stuff.
Well, they can tap into their ultimate.
Like in the Matrix, they can download it.
They can download it, but in this one, it's very similar because they can tap into their alternate selves
who have these abilities,
which is infinite.
Yeah.
Right. So he can tap into.
But you have to be kind of in proximity to it in a sense.
Right.
The farther away it is, the harder it is to tap in.
Right. But he's figured this out. So there's a scene where, she doesn't believe him, and they get encountered by security or some guards and stuff like that, and he goes full Matrix mode on these guys with a fanny pack. It's fantastic, super creative, man. I love it.
Yeah, no, definitely go see it. Worth it. It's still in theaters. If you get a chance to go check it out, I would. It's also available to buy. This is not a paid promotion by any sense.
Well, it's on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. Right. I think it's also on YouTube Movies. It's like $20 to buy it, or rent it or whatever.
Worth it.
Definitely worth it. Like I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, man, it's a lovely, lovely film. So yeah,
I think we have one more on our movie talk to talk about. And that is we're going even further back into a release schedule, and we're talking about this because we both saw this recently ourselves. I introduced Ellis into this, and that is the documentary Val.
Made me cry.
It made me cry. It made me cry. It makes me cry every time. I am for those who aren't familiar with me, I am a very emotional person. I would suggest that I'm very akin to Kevin Smith, where I just will cry at anything. And this made me tear up. And it when it came out right around the time my mom died. And for those who've seen it, Val Kilmer talks about his mother's death, and he goes into a very kind of a depressive state where he showcases his emotions, and that showed me a thing where it was like it's all kind of relatively similar, where it doesn't matter whether you're pushing 60 or you're 30 years old. Loss is loss, and that's what pain is. But it also besides that, it's just such a very humanistic approach to a documentary, like more so than I think I've ever seen.
it's incredibly vulnerable.
Incredibly
vulnerable.
and I think it really ties into what being an actor is, and that's showcasing your vulnerabilities and putting yourself out there. And I don't think any actor or anybody ever has documented their own life in the way that Val Kilmer has.
Not like this.
Like he has
Not like
in the documentary, he he shows that he has a whole warehouse of all these reels that he's.
Well, I didn't know about this, but this is what the documentary describes: is that he's always been filming.
Yeah,
like he always walks around with a camcorder, even in all of the movies
since he was even a little kid.
Since a little kid, and even in a lot of the movies, even during rehearsals and the sets that he's been in, he's walking around with a camcorder and films everything, which I didn't know. So he's been documenting his whole life without him even I mean, I guess he realized it, but he's just been documenting his whole life.
I don't think he realized how important it would be when he was doing it. But he just kept that up, and he still does it, and he has this whole warehouse of material. And for those who aren't familiar, Val Kilmer went through throat cancer and lost his voice.
Which is relatively recently. I think it was
2015 when he lost his voice and went through throat cancer, and he survived, but he talks like not to make fun or anything, but talks like Ned from South Park. He thought he has to hold.
Right, he has a hole,
and he has to choose between either speaking or breathing.
Right,
and that's why it sounds so screwed up.
Right.
And his son narrates this, which is beautiful as well. And he sounds uncannily like Val Kilmer.
He does sound like him,
which is great. But it really is, like you said, it's very vulnerable, because it really it opens up his entire life for criticism, and I think that's a hard thing to do for anybody. But to open up to that level is amazing, and I think it really showcases too, because a lot of people will probably. Well, I think a lot of people give actors harsh criticism because they're so successful, especially like the more famous ones.
I get it.
They think, they're just
they get paid to pretend.
Yeah, exactly. But you forget that they're actually human beings, and I don't think
isn't easy either.
I don't think there's really. I think most actors get into this business because they want to explore themselves through their characters, and they want to bring to life characters, and they want to bring to life stories.
They want to explore humanity.
On top
of that.
And I think this documentary really showcases how actual of a human explorer Val Kilmer really is. And, it goes through all his roles, all his experiences. And I was just completely blown away by it when I first saw it. And I still get blown away by it. And the love he has for himself, even through his trials and tribulations, and the love he has for his children, and, just opening yourself up to his previous relationship with his ex-wife, and talking about like how he acknowledges that it was his career that kind of like ended things because he was so busy and not present.
Right.
And diving into, when you're a method actor like that, or you put yourself into those characters, you really do sacrifice a lot of your own life.
A lot of personal life, man. So,
and
people don't realize that
it's the art against the human, and in this it really showcases that they're a blend, and that art both imitates life and life imitates art. And this is, I think, it's a cycle. Yeah. And it's, like the last one, it's hard to put into words how deeply moved I was by this documentary.
There's a lot of this. So I didn't know. I saw this documentary pop up, and I really didn't give it the time of day, and I should have. And it wasn't until you told me about it that we watched it together, and I was like, shit, man, this is heavy stuff. And it came out a year ago.
Yeah, it was. It came out last August. Yeah.
Last August, right?
Yeah.
There was a lot of it that I wasn't privy to. I knew about the throat cancer stuff because after a while, I was like, "Why isn't Val Kilmer acting, man? I haven't seen him."
Where's he been?
Yeah, where's he been? And then I found out that he had throat cancer, and I was like, "Oh, okay, well that makes a lot of sense. I understand that." But then the documentary goes even further and talks about his whole journey.
Mm-hmm.
From acting, and not only that, but then issues that the things that he went through
like
with his family, losing his brother, who was the filmmaker.
Yeah.
His brother was the guy that introduced him to filmmaking.
Yeah, He was the creative.
He was the creative force.
And arguably still the
and
creative
he was
force.
following along in
Yeah.
his brother's footsteps, and that's how he got involved.
Arguably still the creative force in Val Kilmer's life. Yeah, I think that's the thing, is like he was trying to make his dad's dreams come true, and with where he paid for the whole real estate operation that bankrupted Val Kilmer.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So yeah, and that was a little another tricky thing. These are like family things that happen. Everyone has family things that happen. But yeah, his dad, was it his real dad? It was his
real dad. Yeah,
his real dad.
Yeah.
Okay, so his dad put like some properties under his name, right?
Well, he wanted
shit like that.
He co-signed all the stuff for his dad.
Right. Because he wanted to make him happy.
His dad wanted to be like a real estate baron or whatever.
Right. And things didn't work out.
Yeah. Well, what he did was he took his power of attorney and basically bankrupted Val Kilmer.
Right.
And he
at a young age,
he talks about having a choice to either sue his dad or to write a check for everything he owns.
Right.
And then he said, I wrote a check for everything I own and went back to work.
Right. Which is tough, man. That's crazy. And yeah, he just kind of he reset his life. He kind of started it over from fucking.
This is like after Iceman and Top Gun and stuff like that.
That's crazy.
After Willow and all that stuff. So
that's crazy, man. But yeah, Val Kilmer is a dedicated actor, man. Like
he's still going.
Like I haven't seen him do any bad work.
Right.
There hasn't been a movie where I said to myself, like, that's kind of shit. Like I was always a fan. I remember him as a kid, just growing up, and he was one of those guys that you remember, which is kind of rare, because when you're growing up watching films, like a lot of faces come and go, but that's the guy that I was like, I know, I know this, so I followed him. But yeah, man, this documentary showed a different face. His how he interacts with his fans. How he's been dealing with the throat cancer and all that, and he still goes to Comic-Con. He still does signatures and.
Well, he talks about having to first regretting how he has to do these experiences just to make money,
right?
Signings, but then he realizes then he realizes he appreciates it, appreciates the fans, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate, but that's where he is in life, and
and he got a little teary-eyed when they did this Tombstone. He played Doc Holliday in Tombstone,
right?
And they did this tribute where this was it was kind of a drive-in, like an outdoor kind of theater thing where they were playing Tombstone, and the massive amount of fans that showed up, and he got all teary-eyed, man. He got choked up about that because of all the the support that came through,
right?
And the people that actually cared, like people give a shit about his work, and when I saw that, I saw his reaction to that, and that's what hit me. When he was like, he didn't realize the effect that he had.
Right.
Like he was cutting himself short, and then when he saw that, he was like, wow, people still care. That was pretty deep. That was actually pretty cool, man.
Yeah.
That was a great documentary.
Yeah, I recommend checking it out for sure. It's on Amazon Prime. It's free.
Yeah.
You guys can just, definitely, I would say, do it.
Absolutely. And they also talk about the bat nipples.
The bat suit. No, it goes through all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, they talk about Batman. They talk about why he didn't continue on and why they picked George Clooney and all that stuff. Yeah, they get into details about that. But yeah, man, if you're a Val Kilmer fan, and even if you're a filmmaker or a film fan, I definitely suggest watching that, man, because it is definitely a good watch, man.
Yeah,
you won't waste your time with that. That's good.
All right, I think we're going into wrap up mode here.
All right, cool.
Talk about a couple future things coming out. For the next podcast, maybe by the time we get around to it, a couple weeks, we can talk about some of these things.
Yeah,
I think the first one we can definitely talk about is Lightyear.
Yeah, so Lightyear with Chris Evans.
Yeah.
Okay, so that looks a little interesting.
I think it looks interesting because it looks like to me it's not about the toy, it's about the character that the toy is based on.
Correct.
And I think it looks more like an origin story.
Yeah, it does.
Because in the first couple trailers, he doesn't have the legit suit on. No. He's a clumsy soldier. He's wandering around.
Right.
It looks like one of those where he rises to the occasion and he does something impeccable where he becomes that notoriety, that notorious Buzz Lightyear to the rescue.
Right. I
type
think
guy,
they're
you
going.
know?
I think they're going that route where this is an actual person, and then they made a toy out of it.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't. It's the toy that falls off the shelf and
No,
you know.
no, it's not the actual. No, it's not the actual thing.
Yeah,
I think they made a. I think this character goes through some stuff, and then they ended up making
So
a
they
toy.
probably get maybe a couple of appearances from like Emperor Zurg and or
Right.
you know
Big baddie.
whoever the supporting cast. But it looks fun. You know, surprised that Chris Evans is in it. You know, I think that I don't know what's up with Tim Allen, but you know, I'm not disappointed by it. He sounds great.
No,
He looks,
yeah.
you know, it looks fine. And
Yeah.
as someone who grew up on those movies, I'm pretty excited to see it.
I did, yeah, man. I grew up on Toy Story, and I've watched all of them, and I got choked up on on a couple of those,
And then
for various reasons. But all right, so the first thing that struck me when I heard about Lightyear was that they're doing another cash cow,
yeah,
right? You know, because I'm like, oh, they're running out of ideas, so they're going backwards and trying to fish some ideas that they can extrapolate from and then put it out there and make some money off of it. And that's what I thought. And it still could be true, but you know, another thing, you know, I mean, I like to be devil's advocate, but I'm like, all right, cool. They're doing Lightyear, but when are we going to get a Woody movie?
yeah. I don't know.
Because I like Woody.
I think maybe it's.
I like Westerns.
I think what it is maybe is that it's the whole sci-fi aspect right now is popular, and the Western thing is kind of
Sci-fi's
like.
always been popular.
Yeah, but you know, Westerns.
Westerns are very particular.
Yeah,
Only
yeah.
certain people like Westerns. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the
So
thing.
I think it might come down to the popularity of this movie, whether it does well or not. That we might get a Woody one, but we'll see. And then
Right.
So next, I think to wrap it up.
What do we got? Thor: Love and Thunder?
No, I think we'll talk about Black Adam.
Black Adam. All right. So what are your thoughts on this?
Oh, well. Is it gonna be The Rock as The Rock, or is it gonna be
That's what it's looking like.
The Rock as Black Adam?
No, it's looking like The Rock as The Rock. Yeah, it's looking like The Rock as The Rock.
I know. I follow him on Instagram like everybody else in the world does, and you know, he keeps posting about it. He looks like he's very proud of it. But The Rock's proud of all the stuff he does.
He's always proud of all the stuff that he does.
But you know,
because he doesn't have that much range.
He is the hardest worker in the room, as he always is. You know, whether it's like working out or whatever. We could argue about acting ability, but the effort at least he puts into what he does.
It's definitely not method. But.
Yeah, not method at all by any chance. But you know, I mean, it's interesting to see because Shazam was such a good movie. They did a really good job on that, in my opinion.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
All right. So if we're getting into that, all right. So the Shazam lore is interesting. It's good. It's a good lore. However, it seems like the anti-hero / villain, because he really is a villain.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, is getting a lot more attention than the actual hero. That's like Lex Luthor coming up with his own movie. Would anybody go watch a Lex Luthor movie without any other hero balancing that out?
If it's Michael Rosenbaum, I'll do it.
I'm just saying, you know, we're getting into this very tricky ground where you see a lot of villain movies.
Yeah.
Or anti-hero movies.
Like Joker and
Venom and Morbius and you know all these movies that are starting to come out without the actual hero,
right? Which
is different, and I'm not. It's unsettling for me because you need a balance.
You do,
right? So when's the last time you saw a hero movie without a villain?
Never.
Right. Yeah. But now you have villain movies
without the heroes. Because
they are both, which is fucking weird, man.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it. When I first heard about the Black Adam solo project, I was like, okay, that's interesting, but shouldn't he be introduced in Shazam because that's his that's his nemesis.
Well, the question too is Shazam going to make an appearance because he gets his powers from the same wizard.
The same wizard, man. So it's to me, it's weird. I think it's definitely a wait and see
It's you know,
I think Hollywood's up to a
low
standard.
expectations, and hopefully we won't be disappointed by that.
Very low expectations.
We'll go into it at the foot level. In that you know,
a foot high.
Yeah.
But no, this is my thing, man, and this is always gonna be my fucking sticking point with a lot of these movies is that is it a cash cow? Is it Hollywood playing its same tricks again and trying to find intellectual properties that it can make money out of,
right? Yeah.
Right, by any way possible. Like, let's make money off of a villain, or And to me, again, it's not respecting the source material at the end of the day, because you kind of need both, and it's tricky. It's kind of it's being all over the place. Like, I'm pretty sure that The Rock is going to look like a hero.
Yeah, well, the interesting is, like, in a lot of his,
and he's not
in his contract clauses, what's pretty well known is that he can't die and he can't be seen as a bad guy.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
All right. So automatically,
we'll see. Like, is this going to be different? I don't know, but
automatically they're messing up.
Yeah.
Automatically they're messing up because
I'm not saying this is in this one, but that's a common theme throughout his projects is he has it in his contract where he can't be killed off and he can't be seen as a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like in
as a villain,
like good Fast and Furious movies, like Fast and Furious 5, I think is when he first got introduced.
Yeah.
He was kind of the government villain against, but at the end of the day, he becomes a good guy. And
well, they all become good guys.
Yeah. Well,
and there's this weird gray area. I don't understand. Like, there's no solid definition of who's bad and who's good in a lot of these Fast and the Furious movies, because all the bad guys that are introduced end up becoming good guys, and then there's no who's the bad guy.
Yeah, like
they all get recruited.
Yeah.
So like, what's going on, man?
But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. I think it comes up. I think it's later this year. The first trailer came out.
It's a summer blockbuster.
First trailer came out today.
Right.
I think we'll have more to talk about it next time for sure. Once we digest.
Yeah, I mean, the trailer looks good. There's a lot of action in it. It looks like a summer blockbuster.
Yeah.
But as a guy that respects the material and the content and where the character came from and all that, I know Black Adam is a badass. He's a badass. Yeah. He is, but he's not a good person.
Yeah.
He is not. And Shazam comes into the picture to straighten him out and and get rid of him. So I don't know how that's going to turn out.
We'll see what Billy Batson does if he kicks his ass or whatnot. But
they might. I mean, Hollywood is crazy enough to go ahead and have Black Adam win.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but they're weird enough to do that kind of nonsense. Yeah. So whatever. that's my opinion.
Well, I think that'll probably wrap it up for the night.
Okay. Cool.
Been going on for a while. We talked about a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. I think we covered a lot.
Some tangent. Yeah. Well, it's been a while.
It's been a while. We had a lot to talk about, and this is our first pilot.
Yeah.
This is our first pilot episode. So we were trying to gather up enough material to kind of put everything, put a bunch of stuff together. And these are our thoughts. These are our most recent reviews and things. But hopefully, we'll fine tune it. And
I think in a couple weeks we'll give it another go and have a more refined product for you guys to
and we'll have
digest.
We'll have more content that isn't so
rambling and jumbled. It's what you get when you get two filmmakers together and talk about things for a long time.
So hey, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.
All right.
Tune into Cinemana.
Later, guys.